Peace. Jim Browdy, I am Marjorie Egan. You are listening to Boston Public Radio, 89.7 GBH. We are broadcasting from the Boston Public Library and streaming online at youtube.com/GBH News and facebook.com/GBH News. Good morning, Jim.
Hey there, Marjorie. How are you?
Very well, thanks.
I just want to say a little bit later in the hour, we're going to talk to listeners about how threats of violence have become the language of debate in the GOP. And we'll find out, actually, they're voting right now, third time they're voting for a speaker. We'll find out if the insurrectionist candidate for whom the violence is being advanced to advance his candidacy is going to prevail. And then in the 1 o'clock hour, talk about joy. In the 1 o'clock hour, Lavender Darkangelo, an America's Got Talent finalist, and oh my God, does she have talent and character. She's going to be here with her dad, Will. They're both going to sing, they're both going to talk, and if you didn't hear them on our show, I guess a month or so ago, or see Lavender on America's Got Talent, you don't want to miss her this time. She is a very special woman, and we're really excited they're coming back. Speaking of special, this guy's not that bad. Marcelo Suarez Orozco is the chancellor at UMass Boston, and every time he comes, he's got another book. I don't know if he's going to run out. This one from last year, The COVID-19 Generation, Children and Youth in and After the Pandemic. Chancellor, it's great to see you again. Thanks for being here.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you so much for coming in. So, we have heard a lot, Chancellor, about unrest at other colleges because of what's happening in Israel and Gaza, and people are very, very upset on both sides. So what are you supposed to do, someone in your position, when these very emotional situations come up where there are two pretty distinct viewpoints?
Thank you, Marjorie. There is no GPS to help guide through these extraordinarily challenging times in higher education, but I want to make 3 points in terms of what we did at UMass Boston. First, I led the senior leadership in articulating and sharing an unequivocal condemnation of Hamas's monstrous attack, terrorist attack on innocent Israeli civilians. What we noted is that terror attack is unleashing a new cycle of violence and terror that is dragging, once again, innocent civilians, Palestinians, Israelis, into unimaginable suffering, into mourning and grief and pain, and of course the humanitarian catastrophe that we see unfolding in Gaza and in the region. But our focus at UMass Boston is and will continue to be the well-being, the safety, and protecting our students, especially students with close ties to the region, Jews, Muslims, the family of UMass Boston.
How are you doing that?
We put in place a number of vehicles with the Vice Chancellor for Student Affairs, with the Provost, to reach out to students, to create dialogue, to create spaces of civility. The invasion of incivility into every domain of our society today is one of the biggest threats to the practice of democratic citizenship. So at a moment when we face a catastrophic empathy deficit that is endemic in social media, we need to keep in mind a line from the great Hannah Arendt, writing another time, another dark time, when she said, the death of human empathy is one of the earliest and most telling signs of a culture about to fall into barbarism. We can't let the gates of hell open and devour us. Tragically, because social media aims at the reptilian brain, not at the higher order centers of reason and empathy and socio-emotional intelligence. I think universities need to provide holding spaces for the civil debate about history, about context, fundamentally about empathy and about suffering.
By the way, I totally agree with you, obviously, about the importance of empathy. I would just say, in addition to social media, I think the person most responsible for the death of empathy in this country is the man who has none, Donald Trump. Why do you think, I know you don't want to talk about other campuses, but everybody knows what went on at Harvard and some other places. Why do you think that UMass Boston has been free from this kind of discord? Because obviously the passions are there and obviously the feelings are there. Why do you think there's been a different public play out of this debate at your place?
I think part of it is our demographic. I think part of it is the culture and the scaffolds we have in place. And part of it is the alignment and the nature of the connection with our students. But we're not free of anything. I want to make this clear. You know, Tolstoy starts Anna Karenina with that beautiful eternal line. All families are happy the same way, but each family is unhappy in its own way.
Yeah.
Higher education today is unhappy the same way. Everybody's unhappy the same way. In part because of social media, because we live in an imbecilic world of thumbs up, thumbs down, like, not like. That's not what we need. We need context. We need deep analysis, and we need empathy.
Can we talk about I'm sorry, you're going to say something?
No, go.
I want to talk about a variation.
Immigration, Palestinians.
Which is one of your areas, obviously, of great expertise. Take it away.
Well, we're going to hear first from President Biden last night, speaking from the Oval Office about the Israeli-Hamas conflict, and here's a little bit of what the president had to say.
Also spoke with President Abbas, the Palestinian Authority, and reiterated that the United States remains committed to the Palestinian people's right to dignity and to self-determination. The actions of Hamas terrorists don't take that right away. Like so many other, I'm heartbroken by the tragic loss of Palestinian life, including the explosion at the hospital in Gaza, which was not done by the Israelis.
You know, I think one of the things that's very painful for people, no matter what their politics are, is these images of Palestinians who are, half of whom are children, many of them are not involved with Hamas, kind of waiting to get bombed, and they're being bombed in the south, they're being bombed in the north. Egypt is not going to take them. Jordan is not going to take them, although Republicans running for office are running around saying we shouldn't take any Palestinians here. From what we have learned from NBC News, only 56 Palestinians have been to the United States in the last 10 years, so we're not taking very many Palestinians here. So what happens to them? No one's going to take them. Why not?
Again, tragically, innocent Palestinian lives are being dragged into an undertow that makes their existence so vulnerable. I think that the words of the president were heartfelt. He now needs to deliver. He needs to deliver, perhaps in coordination with the United Nations. I thought the Secretary General spoke with a great deal of clarity when he said earlier today, there's a lifeline here waiting. Water, food, medications for these innocent civilians. As you noted, Marjorie, half are children. And children are always the terrible casualty of wars that often use them as pawns. And their protection, we are signatories to international treaties that require us to step up with humanity and with urgency to deliver what the Secretary General called the lifeline that is now being extinguished with more bombing, with more displacement, with more horror.
But
I should
Joe
correct one thing. I just want to correct one thing. If 56 Palestinians are admitted in this year, past 10 years, it's been fewer than 600.
Well, it's none. I mean, it's
none. Almost none, but I just wanted to be accurate about that.
So you seem to be saying, and I think I'm with you if you are, it's one thing to talk, and I think Biden's words both last night and in Israel about Palestinians were quite moving, but there were no words about helping them here. And as the line from Jordan and Egypt, as Marjorie was touching upon, is the reason we're not accepting refugees is because this is some ploy by the Israelis to get as many Palestinians out of Gaza as possible so that essentially it becomes even more their territory. So what should the United States do here vis-a-vis, some portion of 2 million people who are being crammed into this little tiny space, most of them in the south of Gaza?
So, stepping back, we are the architects of the protocols in the Geneva Conventions that articulate the fundamental right to seek asylum, escaping a well-founded fear of persecution. We're signatures we wrote the conventions. We need to respect the conventions, and we need to do much, much better in terms of, right before the pandemic, I spent 2 weeks in Germany at the American Academy in Berlin. Angela Merkel bet everything on taking 2 million deeply traumatized Syrian refugees. 5 years after her heroic act, 80% of the Syrians are now engaged in the German labor market. That experience is the experience of how a thoughtful, humane, rational approach to easing the transition of refugees into the economy and society of a major post-industrial economy can work. If the Germans could do it, we can do it.
Yeah, and by the way, we should say that part of the reasons, and this is not to suggest that Joe Biden should not do on his own what he wants. We mentioned this the other day. We have people like the demagogue Ron DeSantis saying that every Palestinian is an anti-Semite, and on, and it's echoed particularly through Republican ranks.
As an anthropologist, I have to tell you, Palestinians are Semitic people. So clearly,
can you call Ron DeSantis and tell him that, please?
When he was a student across the river, he wasn't paying attention.
Yeah, well,
he did not take my class, by the way, when I used to teach there.
So can we come back for a few minutes? Can we come back to Massachusetts? We have talked on this show, I would hazard to guess, maybe 500 times about the Federal Reserve study in 2015. It's being updated now by the Fed and the Boston Foundation and some other organizations, Barr Foundation. And the number that we always cite is $247,000 being the average wealth of a white family in Boston, and $8 being the average wealth of a black family in Boston. I can count on one hand what we have said about Latinos in this community. 0 wealth for Dominicans, roughly 3,000 for Puerto Ricans. And not only have we ignored the issue, and I'm trying to take some blame, even though there's no excuse for it, but it's not just wealth. Overall poverty numbers for the fastest growing portion of the population in Massachusetts. And by the way, the population that is responsible for almost 100% of population growth in Boston in recent years, Latinos, is virtually ignored, and the numbers are scandalous.
Yeah, thanks, Jim. De eso no se habla is the way we put it in Spanish. We're not talking about that. I mean, this is the elephant in the room, demographically speaking. As you noted, this is the fastest growing demographic at a time when a city like Boston is having to manage the transition of the most diverse cohort of young people in the recent history of the Commonwealth. The invasion of poverty into our economy and our society is a threat. It's a threat. We are now living with levels of inequality that are unsustainable. No high-income country in the history of the world has sustained the levels of obscene inequalities, which are really translated into opportunities to learn, opportunities to thrive. Our schools are more segregated. The Latino children in our country today are the most segregated children in the United States. Again, as you noted, this is the fastest growing demographic. So the algorithm doesn't work without a happy future. For the Latino origin population of the Commonwealth, there can't be a happy future for the Commonwealth because there are cops, there are nurses, there are architects. They're the future of the city. They're the future of the Commonwealth.
And where does it start to fix this? For example, just a quote from Axios' reporting on census data. The poverty rate of Latinos in Massachusetts is twice as high as the state's overall rate. It is higher than the national rate for Latinos across the country. I mean, every number is atrocious. So does the fix start in public schools? It does?
Yeah, so other than public education, I don't know of any other mechanism that will disrupt the growing and unsustainable levels of poverty and inequality facing our minoritized population. So it's education, that is the creation of what we call human capital, is your best bet against the undertow that is
What
poverty.
should we be doing in Massachusetts public schools that we're not doing to address this disparity?
I think that what we need to do is we need to deepen the responsibility of public higher education in shaping the pathways in K-12 education. I was a dean at UCLA. I was the dean of the oldest and highest ranked school. We took a delegation. We took the superintendent, Mary Skipper, the commissioner for Noe Ortega, to LA to visit the network of university-assisted K-12 schools in Los Angeles' most underserved communities. I'm talking about MacArthur Park. I'm talking about Koreatown. I'm talking about South Los Angeles. How the University of California endeavored a pathway to support the teachers, bring dignity to teaching, support the teachers, and create a transition where in demographic census tracts where 20% of the kids would go to college, we got to over 90% college-going rate.
And how many years?
10 years.
And what did you do? What did that mean, bringing dignity to teachers and supporting the teachers? Did it mean longer school days or tutoring, or what did that mean?
All of the above.
All
so
the above.
We fundamentally redefined. This is a beautiful initiative. This is at the old Ambassador Hotel, where Senator Kennedy
was killed.
Was killed.
Mm-hmm.
We took that hotel and built the largest school in the state of California, and the flagship is the UCLA school at the RFK complex, a school that serves minoritized children. It's a community school, meaning the doors open, as you suggested, Marjorie, at 6 o'clock in the morning, because people have to be at work at 7. And the doors close at 4 o'clock in the afternoon.
Wow.
I brought the law school, the UCLA Law School. I brought the UCLA School of Dentistry. I brought the UCLA Medical School to deliver services to the families so that the children would have all of these citizen children. Many of their parents are immigrants or refugees. And this, by the way, began as California shut down affirmative action and the University of California saw collapsing numbers.
Long before the Supreme Court, for those who
25
don't know.
years, 25 years ago, California had to deal with no affirmative action. So there are models, and that's why we visited with the superintendent, with Noe Ortega, with the mayor's, Dr. Ranger, the mayor's right-hand person in
But
education.
there's not that kind of higher ed K through 12 collaboration in Boston.
But that's what we need.
There was in LA.
We need to engineer that.
Why not? I mean,
Why not?
We are surrounded by schools. We have to talk to you at another time because we're running out of time. But one of the things that seems to me so obvious is that the public schools, the urban public schools, are not working anymore to do the kind of education that kids from poverty need. We need kind of a revolutionary rethinking of them. Maybe you're the guy to help us rethink them in Boston and Lowell and Lawrence and Fall River.
So our deans are the people to do that. we've shown the model
Yep.
in California of an
This is a public school. This is a public school.
Public. UCLA is a public
Okay.
research university. They didn't
Okay.
take a cent from either the school district. This was all philanthropically funded.
Wow.
So, Chancellor, before you go, could you take another couple of minutes and disparage Ron DeSantis again, if you don't mind? You sure he wasn't in your class?
What can I add to somebody who embodies a sensibility that is so counter to the ideals that are so fundamental
Yeah.
in the maker of our project
know.
as a cultural democracy?
Well, you
A
know,
lot of these
before-
people come out of Harvard. I don't know what to make of it. Ted Cruz, Holly from...
That's why I'm at UMass Boston.
Before you leave, in all seriousness, you talk about the lack of civility. What we're going to talk to our listeners about in a minute is, and this is not aberrational, if you are a member of the Republican Party in the House of Representatives and you chose to be one of the 22 members who did not vote for Jim Jordan on the second ballot, your wife gets death threats, you get death threats, the wife of one congressman sleeps with a loaded gun under her pillow now because of these threats. What's your... We know you're not happy with it. What's your reaction to literally the threats of violence becoming an acceptable means of debate in the Republican Party in this country?
So, this is a profound failure of the project of democratic citizenship. Violence is always a silencing moment when all of the sensibilities, all of the achievements of humane society fail. It's a catastrophic failure. Violence begets cycles of violence. It's never an end. It's always a beginning. So I'm speechless. I hadn't heard of this.
Yep. Well, you're here. Stick around or listen on the radio. Chancellor, it is wonderful to see you as always. I really appreciate your time.
Yeah,
Thank you so much.
thank you very, very much for coming in, Chancellor. Much appreciated. We've been speaking with Marcelo Suarez Orozco. He's the Chancellor at UMass Boston, and we very much appreciate your time. After a quick break, we're going to be opening lines and telling you about what Jim just highlighted there. Kind of a new low in American politics, death threats to family members of GOP congressmen who dared to vote against Jim Jordan as Speaker, including, as Jim said, really horrific voicemail messages left to people. One congresswoman is so afraid she's got a gun underneath her pillow at night. Is all this a bit too far? We're going to get your reactions up next. The number is 877-301-8970. You can call us or text us. You're listening to Boston Public Radio at the Boston Public Library. We are streaming on youtube.com/GBH News and facebook.com/GBH News.
Welcome back to Boston Public Radio. Jim Browdy and Marjorie Egan. We're broadcasting live from the Boston Public Library, streaming at youtube.com/GBH News, facebook.com/GBH News. In the 1 o'clock hour, Lavender Darkangelo of Fitchburg fame, America's Got Talent fame, disability advocacy fame, will join us with her father. They both talk and sing with us, and I'm telling you, it will change you. So it appears, according to CNN, even though they're only halfway through the third round of voting on a speaker, that Jim Jordan, who voted against the certification of Joe Biden as the President of the United States after the election, will not have enough votes to be elected Speaker. Despite that, just when you thought dysfunction in Washington couldn't get any uglier, it did. Yesterday, audio was released, we talked about this, by CNN. This is a voicemail left for the wife of a Republican. I repeat, a Republican congressman who just didn't back Jim Jordan's speakership bid. That's his great sin. They're not releasing the name of the woman or her husband for safety reasons, obviously. Just listen to a little snippet of what was said and a warning for parents with kids within earshot. This is pretty dark.
You, your husband, and we're not like the left. We aren't violent, but we're gonna follow your ass. Every appointment you have, everything you can do. I'm putting all your information over the internet now, everybody else's, and you will not be left alone because your husband, you're gonna be molested like you can't ever imagine. And again, non-violently.
Non-violently. So to the top of the hour, we're opening the phone and text line just to get your reaction to the fact that threats of violence, many of them, not one isolated one, have become an accepted language of debate in the GOP. As I said, the good news, I guess, is that, well, I'm sure, is it appears that it's not only not working, but it's reinforcing some of the opposition to Jim Jordan. Nevertheless, this is what supporters of Jordan have thought was a reasonable way to convince Jordan's opponents that they should come around. The number is 877-301-8097. You know, you almost get hardened to this because of what Trump did. And, you know, Chuck Todd made a wonderful point. Chuck was with us on yesterday, actually.
Yep.
Chuck said, I don't know if he said it was one of the good things, he said these kinds of threats of violence and things, what we've learned is they don't work for people like Ron DeSantis. Being Trump doesn't work for non-Trump players.
Thank God.
DeSantis is fading.
Yeah.
Jordan's apparently not going to win the speakership. Sadly, they do work for Trump. In fact, I think what Chuck said to us was, if Trump was running for speaker and used the exact same tactics as Jordan, he'd be the Speaker of the House of Representatives. But apparently, Trump's way of dealing with opponents is not working for others. Nevertheless, they're trying.
No, it's very heartening, and it's very heartening to hear some Republican congressmen get up and talk about how they're not going to put up with this bully and this terrorizing. This Drew Ferguson, he's from Georgia, said he got death threats and all these threatening tactics after he didn't or even hesitated about voting for Jim Jordan. This other Representative Ron Bacon from Nebraska talked about his wife getting multiple anonymous emails and texts. We don't know if that was his wife that got this one that was really, and by the way,
no, but we do know that she's the one with the loaded gun under her pillow. Yes,
and
we do.
When you listen to this whole thing, and we can't play it because every other word is F this, F that, horrible names he's calling her husband, you know, horrible things we can't play on the radio. It's very, very scary. And
we're going to molest you non-violently.
Yeah, and he basically says, you know, you can't go to the beauty parlor. Every appointment we're going to follow you around at. I mean, pretty scary stuff. So he got up and said, you know, that he was not going to vote for a guy like this. So that makes you heartened that at least all of them are not falling for this. And I kind of loved it. Not that I was a big fan of Kevin McCarthy, who I think kind of lost his way, the former Speaker of the House. I love it when Matt Gaetz got up and tried to talk yesterday in the House. McCarthy basically told him to sit down and shut up.
Well, except
and said the whole country would want to tell him to sit down and shut up.
Well, Gaetz is the one who defeated his speakership. That's why he's not the Speaker. So it's not exactly a bold move to criticize the guy who took your job away from you.
No,
but,
it's not, but I did enjoy it.
We're both talking optimism. Jim Jordan is not going to get 217 votes, which is what he needs. He is going to get 200 votes, or 199, or 198. So essentially, 200 Republicans in the House of Representatives, by the way, roughly half of whom voted to overturn the election results by refusing to certify Biden's election, including Jim Jordan, are perfectly fine. Are any of them speaking up Again, and by the way, Jordan made a perfunctory thing. We oppose violence and that sort of stuff. Well, it's not stopping it, is it,
No,
Congressman?
he's just been, and John Boehner called him a insurrectionist nut way back when, before we could imagine the kind of insurrection we just saw. I mean, the guy, what's really incredible? I mean, a lot of Democrats have done bad things. We know Menendez, who is a senator. No sooner does he have a mistrial in his first corruption trial than he's out allegedly at it again, trying to steal money. But at least, he couldn't go into the briefing on Israel and Gaza because he's looked at as an Israeli agent. Here's a guy, I mean, it is incredible that you have the chutzpah to run for Speaker of the House when he knows damn well who won the election. He knows, but he's lying about it. We just had a guilty plea from Sidney Powell, who was a lawyer that was at Trump's right-hand side through this whole shenanigans in Georgia, which she pled guilty to. So he's an insurrectionist. He wants to ban abortion across the country. He is lying about what happened when he was an assistant coach at the University of Ohio.
Ohio State.
4 wrestlers got up there and said Jim Jordan knew all about this doctor that sexually molested hundreds of wrestlers there. Hundreds. I think they had to pay, what did they have to pay? $60 million or something like that. Everybody knew about it, but somehow Jim Jordan is the only one who didn't know about it. This is the kind of guy, and he doesn't seem to think that's a problem. You can just
200 of his colleagues don't think it's a problem either.
Well, exactly.
Donald Trump thinks he's the best thing that ever happened.
I guess that's what's sort of depressing, is that it makes you think that
sort of depressing?
Our standards have become so low.
No, and sort of depressing, and then we're going to get to your calls. This whole violence thing that I find to be so insanely troubling. It's going to be a one-day conversation. We're going to go to the weekend. Jordan's going to lose the third vote. They'll figure out what they're going to try to do next week, and we just move on. 877-301-8970. Let's start with Ellen in a car. We're talking about how you feel about threats of violence becoming the language of, let's call it, debate in the Republican House of, in the Republican Party in general. Hey, Ellen.
Hi. I just see this as them, it's so disingenuous. They've been threatening violence against Democrats. The posters with Democrats in the crosshairs, Nancy Pelosi's husband, January 6th, and they didn't stand up. And now it's come home to their doorstep, and now all of a sudden they have a backbone. So it's fine for everybody else.
That's a great point, Ellen.
You know what I mean? They've been aiding and abetting this behavior for decades. And I've been saying for years that the Republican Party continues to eat itself. The Newt Gingrich guys were eaten by the Tea Party. The Tea Party was eaten by the Freedom Caucus. And it never occurred to them that they were going to be eaten eventually.
Well, Ellen, if I may, the threats of violence guy in chief yesterday in polling is leading Joe Biden in 3 swing state polls a year before the election. That would be Donald Trump. So it's not just the Republican Party. It's a huge swath of our fellow Americans buying this and thinking it's perfectly fine. So I'm not sure. Maybe Jim Jordan's going to suffer. Maybe Ron DeSantis is going to suffer. We could have Donald Trump as the next president of the United States, despite all this, which is really insane. Ellen, thank you for the call. We appreciate it. 877-301-8970. About 300 of the 417 votes have been cast, and it appears quite clearly with 21 people voting neither for Jeffries nor Jordan, and I'm sure all 21 are Republicans, that Jim Jordan will not be, at least today, the Speaker of the House of Representatives.
Mary from Cambridge points out, let's not forget death threats against election workers, librarians, teachers.
I'm so glad.
Hope threatened Republicans will speak out against them as well. That has not been happening yet, but
the Georgia mother. What do you mean? The Georgia mother and daughter. I mean, they don't. Remember the testimony? I can't come out of my house anymore. Threatened by the President of the United States and his chief lawyer, America's mayor, Rudy Giuliani.
Bob from Plymouth, thank you for calling.
Hey, Bob.
Hey, good morning, guys. I think I don't condone the violence. It's horrible. That tape is horrible. But I think of this in terms of the devolution of the two-party system. The MAGA wing, if you look at I just watched the Borgen on Netflix. It's really interesting because what they're doing is they're just trying to stay in power. They're not a coalition party anymore. And I think we're beginning to see the sort of devolution of the two-party majority system in this country. Because, and to your point, Jim, yes, people are following them. That's the troubling thing. There is a kind of majority-minority, if you will, 30%. That's the troubling thing. But I see this as really, if this was just a party within a parliamentary system, not that I would condone it, but it would make more sense, because you see this all throughout Europe right now, particularly in Israel. Same thing in Israel.
Bob,
so that was my comment.
what'd you say?
Not that I condone it, but
The connection is
Yeah,
horrible.
what did? Yeah, it is a bad connection. But Bob, before you go, what did you say you just watched on Netflix?
Borgen.
Oh,
the
Borgen.
fabulous series about a woman who runs a government in Denmark, correct,
Oh
Bob?
my goodness, one of your Scandi noir things.
One of the great shows ever. Check it out. Bob, thanks for the call.
Borgen.
It's spectacular.
Okay.
I think 3 seasons worth. 877-301.
Does she have people like this over in the
8970.
Scandinavian countries?
I watch the series.
Yeah, but
It's pretty
Scandinavia
great.
is supposed to have everything under control, aren't they? Aren't those the Norwegians?
Do you
and
think the
people
average
in
person in
Finland?
this country gives a damn about this? They either support Donald Trump or they oppose Donald Trump. Do you think people are as worked into a frenzy as, in my opinion, they should be over this? Threatening to kill you, threatening to molest your wife. I mean, it is unbelievable. And I don't think our reaction is nearly as emotional as it should be. It's unbelievable.
Well, you're carrying the load for us, Jim. You are very
Well,
much
I don't
worked
think
up
I'm
about
carrying
this.
the load
I
for
think a lot of
anybody.
people are depressed. They're depressed and upset, and they can't believe how quickly things have gone south. I'll drag out my old line that I've used for 20 years.
Use
which
it
is,
again.
I think until recently, I don't know, maybe it was Trump. I think it might have been before Trump. I think it maybe was when some of these real right-wing crazy people got in charge of the Republican Party. You always kind of thought at the end of the day, we do the right thing in the United States of America. You know, we were, because people were patriotic, were thinking about the right thing for the country. But that's not what's happening anymore. And that's what's, I think, very upsetting to a lot of us. And you think about the greatness of our country, and you're seeing it, you know, kind of almost start to trickle down the drain.
Can we, because we've been so negative, I'm going to quote you from the other day.
Yeah.
One really positive thing before we take a break.
What's that?
Yes, it is true that the guy running for Speaker with the support of 200 of 217 Republicans is an insurrectionist supporting person. That's the bad news. The good news, as Marjorie said brilliantly the other day, is he does expedite passports. And we have not mentioned that in a few days. For those who are not listening 2 days ago, Marjorie quoted his spokesperson, Jordan, when the articles appeared in the paper saying that in his X number of years in Congress, not one single bill has become law that he was the chief sponsor of. The second highest accomplishment, according to his staff, was that he was really good at expediting passports.
The first thing, by the way, was the first thing was more serious, but you would think this would be something that a congressman could help you with.
What was it?
Well, helping people with their Medicare and Social Security get those federal programs. Now, I'm not sure Jim Jordan is in favor of continuing with Medicaid and Social Security, because a lot of his colleagues, you know, are not clean. They like to privatize.
Expansion, tons of them, yes.
Exactly. So he doesn't really want you to get very much, or certainly not anymore. But if you have none, I guess he can help you do the paperwork.
And if you have none, you just get a passport and go to a country that has health care.
That's right.
We have to take a break,
We're talking about the mess, continuing mess, I guess, in Congress. Do you laugh? Do you cry? What do you make of it? The outrageous threatening messages sent to family members of the GOP in Jim Jordan's quest to get to the speakership. We're going to keep talking about this. You're listening to Boston Public Radio, live from the Boston Public Library, streaming online at youtube.com/GBH News and facebook.com/GBH News.
Welcome back to Boston Public Radio. Jim Browdy and Marjorie Egan. We're live at the Boston Public Library, streaming at youtube.com/GBH News, facebook.com/GBH News. And we are talking about threats of violence being directed at any Republican who has the temerity to not support insurrectionist Jim Jordan as the next Speaker of the House. By the way, the vote, we're now at 380 votes out of 417. And more Republicans, so far 24, I think it was 22 in the second ballot. The number of Republicans who are opposing Jim Jordan is growing. And the assumption is that in part it's a reaction to these nauseating tactics, namely the threats of violence against members of Congress, their families, and things like that, if they don't vote for Jim Jordan. 877-301-8890. The vote should be complete, I'd say, in 5 minutes. We'll give you the tally as soon as we get it. Where you want to go, Margaret?
Well, the people that are worried, as you point out, Jim, about their passports being expedited can be relieved if he loses, because he may have to put more attention to that than running for Speaker of the House back in his home state of Ohio. By the way, does he just,
even though he's losing votes, does he keep running at the end of this? Does he say next week we'll go for a fourth try?
I don't know. I have no idea. We should point out, we can't vote on things like money for Israel.
Can't vote on anything.
And Ukraine.
Can't vote on anything.
And it's a particularly crucial juncture,
November
would say.
17th, the government shuts down.
That's right.
Yeah.
Okay, Sal, Rhode Island, what do you think?
Hey,
You've got
Sal.
a solution here, Sal?
Hi.
Hi, thank you for having me on the air.
Sure.
I just want to say that as a former military member, I used my GI Bill to come to Rhode Island, go to law school at Roger Williams.
Oh,
and
great.
I had the great opportunity
You've got the most
serving-
gorgeous
serving
campus
out-
in the world down there.
Go ahead.
We do.
Yeah.
I had the opportunity to serve at a NATO base in Italy, and the Italian government treats the mafia as a terrorist organization. And the reason why is because they threaten public officials, politicians, and they destabilize the economy and the government. I want to know why in the United States, people who are insurrectionists or who are threatening people, not only public officials, but poll workers, other individuals that help the wheels of democracy turn, why we are not treating these people as domestic terrorists.
Oh,
and I
you are
think
my
that
kind of guy, Sal. I am.
That is a great
so thank you for
question.
having me on.
Well, we don't know what's Georgia. There was a really good turn yesterday with Sidney Powell, who is, I would argue, along with Rudy Giuliani, the chief scam artist lawyer for Donald Trump. It appears there actually may be some accountability in Georgia, and then maybe Jack Smith, the special prosecutor, will exact some accountability elsewhere in very high places. So I hope it happens. But that's a wonderful comparison for us to think about, Sal. Thank you. 877-301-8097.
We have several texters that are wondering why Jim Jordan got away with defying a congressional subpoena. And I think
Well, I think Chuck answered the question.
Yeah,
The
because
people-
he's a separation of powers kind
Well,
of
still
thing.
not. I still think, from what I read at the time, that he violated the law. But if I think I'm right in saying the people who were referred by the January 6th committee to the Justice Department for prosecution and were not members of Congress.
Yeah.
People like Bannon and Steve Bannon, the obviously chief, sort of Trump's brain kind of thing. I think that's true, and I think that's what Chuck Todd was trying to say to us. By the way, 24 votes as they are almost finished opposing, Republican votes opposing Jim Jordan, which is an increase, I think, by 2 over what was on the second ballot. Brendan in the car, welcome.
Hi there.
Hi.
I'm curious. I don't understand the workings entirely, but I'm wondering why the Democrats don't find a Republican who's maybe someone who's not running for re-election and support his candidacy. I don't know whether the Republican caucus has to nominate them or someone can put their own name forward from the floor. And the Democrats could support him, and I bet he'd get 10 or 15 Republicans, and now you got a speaker and you can do business.
Well, Brendan, you know which incredibly celebrated talk show host in Boston was raising that very point this morning?
I was.
I'm looking at her.
Yeah.
I think there was.
I was.
Yeah,
So
I
respond
think I
then.
heard that young lady. Yes.
Yeah. What do you have to say?
Well, according to Attorney Browdy over here,
It's not Yeah.
The reason was because Democrats would get anybody, if there was any kind of commingling of the Republicans and the Democrats, the comminglers would have hell to pay. They
On the
wouldn't-
Republican side.
Yeah, they wouldn't get any committee. It's about power. They wouldn't get their committee appointments. They would not get the positions they wanted to in the House. That was your thesis.
Yeah, and Brendan, I don't know if you know what happened yesterday. Let me just finish. Jim Jordan, just as predicted by Chuck Todd, agreed to exactly what you're talking about. The Democrats joining with a bunch of Republicans, not just moderates, some of the nuts like Jim Jordan, to allow this McHenry guy to be the interim speaker till the end of the year so they could do some necessary things. He goes to the Republican caucus. The right-wing nuts who support him went crazy, and he did a 180 in about 2.5 seconds. So there you go, Brendan. Brendan, thank you for the call. By the way, we're up to 25 Republicans who are opposing the speakership vote of Jim Jordan.
By the way, the McHenry idea does seem to me to be a good idea to get, while they're fighting about this, so they can move ahead and get some things done.
Well, except that in the ranks of the Matt Gaetzes of the world, it is tantamount to treason to ever work with any Democrat
but that's
on
another
anything.
thing. How pathetic that the people that are in this Matt Gaetz, who has a very checkered history.
Who was this close to being indicted by the Department of Justice for trafficking young women.
Marjorie Taylor Greene, who's talking about Jewish space lasers and all this kind of crazy stuff. Lauren Boebert, who runs around with this this assault rifle and makes ads of herself with this assault rifle.
Well, you left out and grabbing the crotch of her boyfriend in the movie theater a couple of weeks ago.
But who
nothing
hasn't,
wrong with
Jim?
that.
Nothing wrong with that.
Who hasn't?
Okay.
Exactly.
But I guess those are the people that are holding.
I'm aware of that.
The future of this Republican Party.
Well, but you keep doing this. Like these rank and file Congress people, go up the chain a little bit. There's a guy who's more dangerous than all the people you mentioned combined.
I know.
And he's leading in the race for the presidency.
I know. Okay.
Only 91 felony indictments. Maybe when there are 191, people will change their minds.
Ed from Gardner, what do you think, Ed?
Hey, Ed.
Hi, thank you for my call. So I got involved in politics in the 1980s, street protesting, and the Cold War, and the war in Nicaragua. And when Chernobyl happened, it was a big push on the left, and I'm a Democrat. But what I've learned over the years is that, violence from both sides and rhetoric that shouldn't happen from both sides. This is not heaven, and none of us are saints. But if those 25 people, Congress people that voted against Jordan, those are the people the Democrats need to speak with and to work with, and then try to gain more Republicans, get someone in the House so that they can get the people's business done.
Ed, for whatever it's worth, Democrats are having those conversations. From what we read every single day, they've had tons of conversations with moderate. And by the way, some of these 25 are not moderate Republicans. Some are. They're just opposing Jim Jordan. And they've had those conversations, but they've gone nowhere because you're putting your career, your power in the Republican caucus at risk if you have the audacity to work across the aisle with the Democrats. So, I mean, and by the way, the one place where you lost me, Ed, at least in this environment, since Trump came on the scene, there is no equivalency between threats of violence and actual violence between Republicans and Democrats in this country. It is not even in the same stratosphere. But other than that, I'm with you, Ed. Thank you for your call. We appreciate it. 877-301-8970.
Ron from Rhode Island is reminding us about Romney having to pay $5,000 a month for private security because he was opposed to the president on these different fronts. And then Adam Kissinger, the guy that was a Republican that was on the January 6th committee, all that money they had to pay for private security. Liz Cheney, who, of course, was leading this January 6th committee so brilliantly, was voted out of office by someone.
Crushed.
To the right of her. So a lot of people are and I wonder how much of this is their own, in every case, some of this is going to come out of their own pockets. It's not all provided by
I
the
don't know
government.
if you, I mean, you can use, well, I don't know if it's government. I don't know if you can use campaign funds. I don't know
I'm
what
not sure. I'm not sure.
But you shouldn't need to have be paying $5,000 a month. And by the way, Mitt Romney, well, he said there were other reasons. Don't you think Romney's not running for re-election? He looks pretty healthy to me, and he believes in service. You think he's not running for re-election for any reason other than the fact there's no place for a relatively sane
I'll tell
Republican?
you what, Mitt Romney is the poster boy for what you can look like late into life. If you don't smoke, you don't drink coffee, you stick to, what is his big drink? Vanilla Coke or something like that?
Decaffeinated vanilla Coke.
Decaffeinated vanilla. I would say he's looking
on the
good.
right track.
What is he, in his late 70s by
Late
now?
70s, yeah.
Ann from Wellesley, thank you for calling.
Hi, Ann.
Hi.
Hi.
What I've called to say is that the American voter has to realize, or citizen has to realize, that God forbid Trump gets into office again, we will never have another election because they're all fixed and rigged. We are verging on living in a dictatorship.
Well, I don't know about more. I'm with you, and I didn't used to subscribe. I didn't even like when callers mention those kinds of things on the shows in past years. But all you got to do is follow Trump, read what he has to say, listen to what he has to say, what he says he's going to do if he's reelected. And I think your words are not exaggerations at all, Ann. Thank you very much for the call. Appreciate it.
Well, you know, the thing that people are nervous about now, although the Democrats are less nervous, because the original thought is RFK Jr., who's a big anti-vaxxer and conspiracy theorist and a very odd guy, was going to take votes away from Biden. Now there's some thought he's going to take votes away from Trump, but you really don't know who he's going to take votes away from.
Cornel West is still in the race, too.
Cornel West is in the race, too. That's right. He was no longer the Green Party guy. He's in there as independent. So I think I don't think in a straight-up race Trump can win. But if people like RFK Jr. or Cornel West get enough votes, I mean,
see the polling
Ralph
yesterday?
Nader didn't take it.
See the polling yesterday in the swing states?
He's ahead.
So, and you keep saying it can't happen. Why again can't it happen?
Because I think people are going to be worn down. I mean,
Yeah.
I'm thinking that
Jim Jordan has got 194 votes to be the next Speaker of the House of Representatives, despite what we all know about him. 194
yeah, well,
votes.
I think of my fellow Americans better than I think of the people in Congress
well, that's one
on
of
the
us.
Republican side.
Okay.
Do we have any time for?
No, we don't.
We don't have any more time.
Rest of the show is not going to be this depressing. Actually, we're talking about the tea at 12. That is going to be that depressing.
Oh, no, it's
After
not.
we talk about the tea.
Oh, no, it's not, because the tea is going so far off the deep end. I mean, all you can do is laugh. I mean, it's just terrible, unless you're somebody who needs to take the tea every single solitary day, and then you're in big trouble.
But, the one good thing, even though the tracks are too narrow on the Green Line after having spent $2.3 billion, at least there's serious accountability for the people who are responsible, right?
Yeah, that's what we're going to focus
Maybe not.
on. We're going to focus on this brand new section of T expanded Green Line. They knew that the tracks were faulty
2
back
years
in
ago.
2021.
What'd they do? They opened the damn
Kept
thing anyway.
right on building them dysfunctionally nonetheless, and we don't know who's going to pay for this, probably the taxpayers of Massachusetts. Anyway, we're going to talk about that with Jim Aloisi and with you guys next. You're listening to Boston Public Radio 89.7 GBH.
The nationwide study from the National Highway Safety Council looked at youth deaths on major highways over the past 2 decades. The Massachusetts study from AAA looked at a broader set of criteria. Mark Shieldrop is with AAA.
Our review is based on teen driver-related crashes, including, people who were killed, say, a pedestrian or bicyclist by a teen driver. And we're also looking at every road.
Last year, 49 people were killed in Massachusetts crashes involving drivers between the ages of 16 and 19, and that's the highest number in 15 years. Shieldrop says the top causes of the fatal crashes were distracted drivers, failing to yield, and speeding. Bob C., GBH News, 89.7.
Eastern Browdy, I am Marjorie Yeagan. Welcome to hour number 2 of Boston Public Radio, 89.7 GBH. We are reporting live, or broadcasting live, I should say.
Whatever.
From the Boston Public Library. We're streaming on youtube.com/GBH News and facebook.com/GBH News. Hello again, Jim.
Okay, this is unbelievable. The Green Line extension was first proposed, I think, in the 20s, with state commitment to build it out, only coming in the 90s.
Wasn't really the 20s, was it?
I think so. Well, it was a long time ago. Last year, actually, in the year before it started to open, things started to disintegrate almost immediately. First, the inexplicably narrowing tracks. Now the public has learned that 80% of some of these tracks will have to be relaned. Relane, is that the proper term?
I don't know.
Laid again, whatever they are. Here is the GM of the T, relatively new. It's not his fault, this stuff. Phil Lang, and listen to the date that he mentions that people knew about this on the T. Here's Mr. Lang.
I found out about it recently after looking into this in more detail. Back in April of 2021, is my belief that it could have been and should have been more proactively investigated.
So they knew in 2021 that the tracks were laid too narrowly. And did they open the extension anyway, despite having known that?
Yes, they did.
Exactly. So Jim Aloisi, former Transportation Secretary, member of the Transit Matters Board, contributor to Commonwealth Magazine, and a regular attendee, thank you, Jim, on our show, joins us via Zoom to discuss, hey, how are you, Jim Aloisi?
I'm doing really well. I'm doing better than the Green Line.
Apparently, everybody's doing better than the Green Line.
This is unbelievable. I was thinking this morning, it's like you hired the painters to paint your house blue. And midway through, you noticed that the painters had painted your house green, and you just let them keep painting it blue like it was going to magically change colors midway through. This is what they did. They knew that the tracks were too narrow, and they just kept going. What?
I think it's
magical thinking.
I think I've said this. It's magical thinking. I've said this before on this program. It's like, remember The King and I? There's a great expression there. It's a puzzlement, right? It is a true puzzlement.
Yeah, it's a puzzlement.
And so, imagine if you're Phil Lang. Imagine having that job, coming into this position, and then finding stuff like this, and how difficult it is as a leader to do what he did. I give him a lot of credit for getting up there, standing up at the podium with no one. I thought the optics were interesting. He was there alone as the leader of the MBTA, and he was just telling it like it is. Now, he was telling it straight, and we all heard it, and it's pretty awful stuff. But the fact that he would do that in a moment where transparency really is useful and critical to our mutual confidence in the system, I thought was a breakthrough moment. So despite the fact that the news was awful, I thought the way he handled it and the approach that he's taking, which is tell them the truth, even if it's ugly, and then have a plan to fix it, which seems to me he's got a plan to fix it in a reasonably short period of time. That's really good news. What's really bad news is that you have an agency where apparently for the past several years, in this weird interim period, I guess, between the FMCB and Phil Eng showing up.
Fiscal
where
Management
the culture,
Control Board. Yeah, go ahead.
Where the culture just decided to go on autopilot, apparently. And we're all suffering as a consequence.
We have talked to you and Stacey Thompson a lot about lack of transparency at the T. Sometimes you agree, sometimes you disagree. Let's talk about accountability for a minute. The governor said yesterday that the good news is we're going to hold people accountable. Well, that's going to be pretty hard as far as I can tell, because Mr. Eng says he doesn't know who made the plates. We do know that the guy in charge, this Dalton guy of the extension, knew about this in 2021, was urged to fix it or do something. He didn't do it. He's not talking. Another person who was involved that time was not talking. The guy who was head of the T, who you're generally complimentary about, Steve Poftak, is not talking, which I think is indefensible. The T was certified the work as safe. The DPU certified the T certification, and the federal, the FTA, certified theirs. I mean, this is a confederacy of dunces.
Hold on. They had this inspection report from something called Terracon back in April of 2021 that said the tracks were defective. Somebody did say it back in April.
I know that, and they reported it to this guy Dalton, and they did nothing.
And they had some guy that kept calling up from the deputy director of the maintenance of the way department. I guess he kept telling people at the T that this was a mess, and no one listened. So.
Hey, Jim Aloisi, Charlie Baker's spokesperson, Jim Conroy, said the governor knew nothing about it. You used to work in high places in state government. Is that believable?
Oh, sure. That's believable because those kinds of details rarely would get to the governor.
The tracks are too narrow on the extension?
Well, I'm based on what I know, which is basically what you know. It seems to me that there was not a serious effort to communicate that above a certain pay grade at the T. I mean, I would be amazed if somehow that bubbled up to the secretary and it then bubbled up from the secretary to the governor. It seems like it didn't. Now, how far it went up, I think, is a legitimate question to ask. I mean, for Baker to know about this would have taken an exercise in micromanagement that I just don't believe.
Oh, I'm not suggesting he did. I'm just asking you because you were secretary. You know how it works.
Here's the question.
I don't think that would require a level of micromanagement that I think is above and beyond any governor's ability to micromanage. And by the way, they're really good at that. But I think this would take it to a level unheard of.
But I guess
what I do think we need, though, is an independent actor to come in and to give us a retrospective on what happened. I mean, I don't think Phil Eng needs to be burdened with it anymore. He needs to do what he's doing, which is telling us about it and getting it fixed. But some outside actor needs to come in to say, here's what happened. I mean, John Dalton is a very highly regarded national figure when it comes to this type of thing.
But hold on.
Wait, let's hear what he has to say. Finish the sentence.
The idea that he would be aware of this and not do anything about it suggests one of two things. Either he was so focused on a delivery date that he lost, perspective, let's call it that, or he had a professional judgment that somehow, in some way, this was resolvable and not the kind of problem that needed to delay the project.
But Jim,
I don't know.
Jim,
no one's interviewed him,
well,
but we need to find out.
But we do know this in this Taylor Donovan story that says internal T emails obtained by the Globe showed members of the T's track department implored Greenline Extension Manager John Dalton to fix not only the most extreme narrow gauge areas where speed restrictions would be needed, but thousands of others that were still too narrow. So, I mean, assuming this is right, and Taylor Donovan is a very good reporter, I've been reading her stuff for a long time about this, he knew it. So I guess you have to say to yourself, if he's, what are you thinking when you know something is a disaster, a $2.3 billion disaster, you know it's going to fall apart, and you do nothing about it? It's kind of insane, isn't it?
Yeah, I think so. let me just let's all take a deep breath for a second.
We're not taking any deep breaths, but go ahead.
I don't think it's fair to say that the Green Line extension is a disaster. I think that the Green Line extension is having an incredibly difficult time getting its sea legs. Okay, to mix metaphors.
Okay.
It's a very important project for purposes of reducing emissions in the inner core, getting access. It was every penny well spent. However, we're entitled as T-riders, as taxpayers, as fare payers, to a system that's fit for purpose. And we didn't get that. And so at some point, there needs to be culpability, probably at the contractor level, for sure. And then there needs to be some accountability, as you say. It's hard to keep people accountable if they no longer work for the organization.
Well, except that's the last thing I want to say to you. And this is one place where we may disagree. My attitude is, when you are the centerpiece of a story where billions of taxpayer dollars were spent, and maybe not spent as well as they should have been, I'll be euphemistic, then if you refuse to speak to a reporter to say the things you said his defenses might be, then my attitude is guilty until proven otherwise. Why is Dalton not stepping up to the plate, talking to the Globe reporter and explaining why this happened, and that he didn't think it was dangerous, and that he would never cover up anything because he probably doesn't have a case to make? Is that not a fair conclusion? Why is Povtak not speaking?
I think a reasonable conclusion is that either they don't have, well, I think Povtak and Dalton are in two different categories.
Okay.
You can't, it's impossible to say John Dalton didn't know, because it seems clear from what we read that he did. So in that respect, he does need I think, well, look, he doesn't have to do anything unless there's an investigation that he has to respond to.
Well, unless he's a moral person.
Obligated.
Moral people speak up when they're accused of things and they say they're not guilty. But go ahead.
Right. But, so legally he doesn't have, but
correct, of course.
Morally you're correct. I think, look, we paid him a pretty good salary, and the platform that we gave him here enabled him to get an even better job in New York. Let me just say, if I were concerned about the work he's doing in New York in terms of I believe he's working on the tunnel, I'd be really concerned that we hired the right guy. So I think it's in his interest to clear that up, right? In terms of Steve Povtak, we don't know what he knew.
Because he won't talk. Because he won't talk. Let him stand up and say, I didn't know anything.
Right. The only way you're going to get this is if you have, someone at the level of Inspector General come in and say, look, I'm just going to take a look at this thing, and I'm going to start calling in people, and I'm going to make it public. I don't think, to wrap it up on this level, that's what I think you need if you want that kind of forensic, right? But I think I don't want to ask Phil Eng and his team to be distracted
let him
longer.
Fix it. I agree.
Let him fix it and let him get it done.
By the way, let me say, Jim, we really appreciate joining. I'm not yelling at you. I'm yelling with frustration, and you're the one who's kind enough to join us.
Well,
we love you.
I'm very frustrated myself. Look,
I know you are.
I showed up at the T station I normally use every day today and found that the next train was coming in about a half hour.
That's good. That's
on
good.
The red line.
Yep, that's good.
So, I had to take other means to get to work today. And I joked when I got to work. I said I got mode shifted in the wrong way. Usually when you talk about mode shift, it's like you get out of a car and you take transit. Well, today the T forced me to do the opposite, which is not a good thing. When it's forcing me to do the opposite, because I'm a pretty stubborn transit user, that's a bad thing. And so we've got a lot of things that need fixing here.
Okay.
I'm very mindful and very respectful that the burden on the people who are running the T is heavy. And so I tried not to add to that burden when I see people like Phil Eng doing the right thing yesterday.
Okay, Jim, we got to go because we're out of time here.
We really appreciate your time, Jim. Thanks
but thank you so much for calling in.
Nice seeing you, and we'll see you soon.
We will.
Okay.
Can we not take a break and just take some calls?
Yeah.
What's your reaction to this thing? 877-301-8970.
Okay, you didn't like my analogy about the paint in the house.
No, it's fine.
But here's another one.
Okay.
You're driving down the Mass Pike.
And
all of a sudden you see flames coming out of your engine.
Okay.
But you just keep on going because, maybe miraculously it won't get worse. You know what I mean? This is kind of what this is like. It's just absolutely crazy. You read the story from Taylor Dolvin in the Boston Globe. It's great. The revelations left people with their jaws dropping. This level of dysfunction and irresponsibility defies explanation, said this attorney with the Conservation Law Foundation. They were the ones that wanted to get this program going back in 1990 and actually had to sue the state in 2005 to get it going. I mean, it's just a grave error. It was known within the agency, but neither fixed nor shared. But
okay, can we talk about what I want to talk about?
Underlings did report it.
Do you not agree with me that if somebody who knew everything about this thing had a defense, that he would speak to the damn reporter?
Yeah. Well,
I mean, it's insane.
Well, you're obsessed with them talking to the press, and I get that.
Excuse
me.
I'm
just obsessed.
The guy is responsible for doing nothing about a $2 billion project, having tracks that are too narrow. What do you think about his silence?
The idea is, how could it be that we have a $2.3 billion project that is being falsely constructed? You just keep going.
877.
That's the unbelievable thing.
877-301-8970. We don't have much time, but give us your thoughts on this latest on the dysfunction of the T. Again, as Jim said, not Phil Lang's fault. He's brand new.
No, he's the Ted Lasso of the
That's
T.
what he said.
He's relentlessly enthusiastic and optimistic. He thinks he can fix it. God knows. We hope he can. But meanwhile, Brian from Hyde Park, what do you think?
Hey, Brian.
Hey, guys. How are you?
Excellent.
Good.
Never better.
Been in the construction industry for 30-odd years.
Yeah.
It either comes down to the engineers designing it out of tolerance or the construction crews installing it out of tolerance. And if it goes back further than that, it goes back into the coordination of the information that the engineers were using. And that's where it's going to come out, one way or the other.
Yeah, but Brian, before you go, according to what Marjorie read from Taylor Dolvin's reporting, the boss, the guy in charge...
He knew.
So even if the engineers were playing games or didn't do their job properly, the guy in charge knew and chose to say nothing. I mean...
They knew in April of 2021. It opened in 2022.
Brian, thank you for your... I'm sorry, go ahead.
That's the case of ostrich category right there.
I would say that is exactly right. Thank you, Brian, for your call.
Right there.
We appreciate it.
Oh, my God.
You know what's going to happen here, by the way?
Two people are no longer working for the T. We don't know who they were. We don't know what happened. We don't know if they were fired. They were laid off. We don't know if they're still going to get their pensions, which are pretty good at the MBTA. We don't know that. But we do know that people that worked underneath the bosses reported this, and they did nothing.
And what do you think? And by the way, we should have asked this of Jim, because Phil Lang is now the boss, and he obviously knows who those people are who were dismissed and why it just happened. Why don't we know who they are? Why don't we know what their culpability is? Why don't we know if they're getting a pension?
Here's what we do know, Jim. We do know that Phil Lang has tapped a new leader to see the project through completion. Her name is Maureen McDonough.
Good for
She's
her.
a good Irish woman, and we're hoping for great things from Maureen McDonough. Yeah, I'm hoping so too.
Paul and Hingham. Paul.
Oh, thanks for your time.
Thank you.
I was wondering, with all the cost of everything that has happened here and the amount of money that it takes to clean up and correct this problem, why are these people continuing to getting paid while they're doing this, while they fix it? There just seems to be no accountability for any of this.
Well, in fairness to Ang, I assume they're fully paid because the thing is, quote, done. But Phil Lang did say they're going back to the contractors who obviously screwed this up and that they're going to be responsible. Let's see if that's what happens for the fixing. So the least taxpayers are owed, and I refuse to believe that Maura Healey is going to allow them to get away with not paying to fix this. Let's hope that's the outcome. So let's reserve that judgment, Paul, for a week or so, and then we can take it from there. Thank you for your call.
You act like you're surprised by all this.
I am.
For years, we've been talking about how the T has this quasi-private pension system, but really it's a lot of public money in there. We couldn't find out anything about that. And when we did, what we found out is that it was the 23 and out deal, right? Where you started at 18 and you could retire at 38. Deval Patrick did change that, but only modestly, because because the people that were hired after that. But I think it's fair to say the T is paying more now out in retirement money than it's paying for salaries because there's so many people that are retired from the T. If you retire at 38, Jim, you might make it to 88. You know what I mean?
So let me ask you another thing.
50 years.
No, then you go get another state job. As some very prominent people in town
You know what we call that?
Yeah.
Double dipping.
No, and I think triple dipping is a nice thing. It's all legal, unfortunately. Ron in Seabrook, what's your deal?
Hi, we're old enough to remember when all of the toll booths had someone sitting in them.
Oh, that's right.
And we all knew that those were the nieces and nephews and sons-in-law of people higher up that got them those jobs.
They needed work, too.
I think for decades, the T was staffed predominantly with people that weren't really qualified, but they were related to someone or knew some higher up that got them those jobs. Mr. Eng said today that he's dealing with a culture of low accountability. I think
that's
it's
for
a
sure
leftover from those days.
Well, maybe so.
Yeah.
That's true. Even though I have to say, you're probably right. Sitting in a toll booth for 8 hours a day, it to me is not
Do you remember
exactly
the
a grand
fight,
job. Ron,
the
thank
fight
you.
over getting rid of those toll booths, though? It was as if we were trying to, slaughter a bunch of grandmothers. I mean, we just couldn't get rid of those
That
toll
was
booths.
Deval Patrick, too, wasn't it? I think it was.
I'm not sure.
By the way, you see the headline behind you on CNN?
Oh, he looks like the second person. Kenneth,
Second Trump lawyer.
Yes, Chesborough is taking a deal. It looks like he may be pleading guilty. We don't know, but he's taking a deal. Could be
sure he
another
is.
person that's pleading guilty. It's going to be difficult for the Jim Jordans of the world to keep saying that the election was stolen when all these people that were pleading guilty to the nefarious
Another guy
part.
very, very close to Trump while he was trying to overturn this election, pleading guilty. I'm assuming we're watching it as we speak, so we don't know the details. The deal for him is the same with Sidney Powell as yesterday. You got to agree to testify whenever asked by a prosecutor. In the Georgia case, the federal cases, whatever. So the walls are closing, despite the fact that the person the walls are closing on is leading in the polls to be the next president of the United States.
You know what they used to say in South Boston when Boston Edison was a big employer? The deal was you wanted to get on the Edison. That was the expression. And then it became get on the T, Jim. So maybe there's few people that maybe should have gotten off the T a little sooner. We wouldn't be in the mess we're in. This reminds me, this reminds me of the Big Dig. We have a big podcast. We have a great Big Dig podcast.
Yeah,
and I
we
could
do. It's
hear all
terrific.
about it. When we found out, when people were concerned about how the ballooning cost of the Big Dig, how it turned out there was this trucking company that was picking up dirt somewhere, I don't know, by Faneuil Hall and lugging the dirt to Quincy. And then they're turning the truck around and bringing the dirt back from Quincy
By the way,
back
this is
to...
true. This is not made up.
Well, I may have the locations wrong. But it was
I think
someplace in Quincy. I think
Can we do this? We don't have much time on this.
Back and
I don't
forth
care about the dirt.
for
I care
months.
about this.
What?
You're still not where I am on this. There is serious, horrible service of the taxpayer.
That's right.
By the people in charge.
She's going 3
Let me
miles
ask you
an hour.
one more time. If the person who was in charge, who quite clearly knew about it, refuses to talk publicly about it, are we not entitled to assume the worst? Yes or no?
We are entitled to assume the
fine.
worst. You could say the buck stopped with Charlie Baker, who was the governor of the Commonwealth
except
of
that I
Massachusetts.
think Jim Aloisi made a pretty compelling case, at least to me. I don't work in that hierarchy, that it's unlikely that it ran all the way up the flagpole. And the reason is because this Dalton guy or some of these people...
But I guess what I would say is if you were spending, and Baker he spent a lot of money fixing tracks.
Yeah.
You see them out there on Saturday and Sunday. He put more money into the T than anybody did, so he gets credit for that. But if you were the governor and you were in charge of an agency that is known for corruption, let's be honest, it's known for secrecy, that's known for lack of transparency, that's known for hiding all the information that's going on, you might say to yourself, when I'm starting this $2.3 billion project, I should be a little bit more skeptical of what I'm hearing from people that run the MBTA.
No, I don't know. All I know is this guy knew, and this guy has maintained his silence. And, Steve Poftak, again, was the GM during this. As I said to Jim Aloisi, if you knew nothing about it, then hold a press conference today and say I knew nothing about it. Or if you did know something, then tell the damn truth.
Do we have time for any more calls here?
What?
Do we have time for any more calls
here?
Yeah,
we'll take one more.
Jack from Newport, what do you
Jack,
think? Is this kind of stuff going on over on Island? I heard they had a tough time in Providence for a while, if you know what I mean, Jack.
Sure do. That's Rhode Island. That's Rogues Island.
Back when Buddy Cianci was at City Hall. It's the Wild, Wild
Rogues
West.
Island.
Yeah.
Yes, indeed. So I just want to put a little positive spin on
okay,
one
we're ready.
This should be good. Go ahead.
Yeah. Try my best. I think some kudos have to go to the commuter rail system. It's certainly not without its problems, but I think Keolis has done a pretty good job. Some of the folks with the trolley problems now, I think, have gone over to Fairmont trains, and there was an article.
We talked to Shirley Leung about this.
Who's right over there?
Yeah.
She's right.
Oh, she is?
She came to visit
Oh, hey,
us.
Shirley, Mooncake Woman. Go ahead.
And about a month ago, I believe there was something in the Globe that said that the commuter ridership on the rail component, the railroad component, was up to.
Shirley
almost
wrote
back
this.
up to,
Shirley, read Shirley's piece about the Fairmont.
we did.
She and Bill Weld are riding the Fairmont line.
And it's doing a great job. And it's
Jack, thanks.
And it's
It was an
going
excellent
through.
try.
Yeah, no, that's a very good point, though. The Fairmont Rail is doing very well. Shirley told us
Okay,
all
Shirley,
about
what
that.
I'd like you to do before we break is go over to the mic so you can tell us why you're here. Shirley Leung, go to the mic. Is Warren Talbot somewhere here? Where's Warren Talbot? Are you Warren Talbot? Raise your damn hand if you're Warren. What are you, afraid I'm going to have you arrested or something? We are told that you, Warren Talbot, were the first editor at the Eagle Tribune of our spectacular coworker, Zoe. Is that correct, yes or no? And how was she?
Brilliant.
Thumbs up. Thank you, Warren Talbot.
Thumbs
Let's
up.
hear it for Warren Talbot.
Woo! Taught Zoe everything she knows. Now,
There you go. Now,
Okay.
why are you here exactly,
Are you here to
Shirley
talk
Leung?
about the tea?
No, I'm talking about mooncakes, of course.
Why are you here? Tell us.
So I did a very Asian thing.
What'd you do?
You know, after the Moon Festival was over, August Moon Festival,
Yes,
right?
we
So
have.
what happens, like, the day after the Moon Festival's over in I forgot.
Mooncakes go on sale.
They go on sale, just
I
like
know this.
Halloween candy
I know
go on
this.
sale the
That's
day
right.
after Halloween.
You save them for
so
the next
my friend and I
Halloween.
went to Chinatown. We got some discounted mooncakes.
Discounted still isn't cheap. These are really expensive.
So these are from Wing Hua, from
Ooh,
Hong Kong. Very
gorgeous.
famous. Look, your own
Knife, we call it.
Oh,
yes.
Wing
wonderful.
Hua, and usually they're
Shirley, you're the-
$35.
You're the best.
Wait, let's hear. How
They're
much are they
usually
usually?
$35 a box. You know, let's say for a decent mooncake. These are like 60 and up. Discounted. You don't get. Usually it's 50% off
Yeah.
the day after
Yeah.
the Moon Festival's over. But these were only $15
Well,
off.
why are you here is the question.
For us to eat the
Am I,
mooncake.
Wait, not us.
Oh,
just
not us?
Jim.
Oh, just Jim?
I'm
Because I
not-
insulted the mooncake.
Well,
That's
no,
right.
you might if you get a piece of mooncake, you have to eat it.
Okay.
You can't not eat it.
No,
All
don't
right.
say okay. Say yes, I
yes.
will.
And so Jim will.
I'll slice
Jim
you a
will
little
them up.
slice.
I think I
Very
suggest
small.
8 and 1/8, not 1/4.
What does it fill with? Red bean or what?
No, these are the White Lotus.
Oh.
You've never had White Lotus.
No, I'm about that
That's
White
why.
Lotus.
That's why I brought them for you. My friend has been giving me them, so I have extra.
Those
And
are very expensive.
Yeah, these are like usually $15 a mooncake, and so.
Can we please hear it for Shirley Leung, mooncake deliverer for the Boston Globe?
You can share it with. This is my.
I'll make that decision.
This is
Thank
for my
you.
friend Bick. If Bick is listening, Bick Ing, and so we went out and got
Yeah.
some.
Thank you,
mooncakes.
Bick.
And so
Now, I just have another question for you. You're an opinion maker over there at the Boston Globe.
Yes.
You write a column. You have a podcast. What do you make of people that discover in April of 2021 that they've screwed up on these tracks in this $2.3 billion project and just keep moving ahead?
It's awful. It's awful. And I was thinking about this. I was listening to you guys in the car, and I was thinking like. You know, maybe we need to teach our what were their parents like? What were their teachers
Exactly.
like? Why
Yeah.
would you just not? Why would you not say anything?
The dog ate my homework set. Maybe that was people that are over there.
I don't get it.
I
And
don't
I don't
either.
get it at all.
Neither
And it's
do I.
not like they have to pay for the repairs themselves.
No.
You know?
There were some underlings. There were some underlings that did try to get the attention of the big wigs,
But
and they
still,
failed.
How does that happen? That
I
was
don't know.
actually the most troubling part of the story.
Well, yeah. Like
The most troubling part of the story is they're all clamming up. Okay.
No, he's making a lot of noise.
I'm sorry, I'm opening the damn. Could you do me a favor before you go? I got the knife.
No, you don't cut it like that. What are you
I'm
doing?
handing her a piece of the mooncake.
Mooncakes like that.
How do you cut them?
What?
Okay, go ahead. Shirley's cutting a mooncake.
You gotta cut it like this.
Okay, and can you hand her that piece? Give her. It's too big for her, just because
Oh,
she's
of
not
course.
crazy about
You-
mooncakes.
All right.
Yeah,
You
it's
know-
good radio. Go ahead.
This one.
You know,
right here.
Tim
That
says
one.
I'm giving.
That one. Just grab it.
Okay.
And look, can I have a piece here?
Tim
too,
says
please?
I'm not giving the T enough credit because they did install the rails right side up, Jim.
That's good.
Maybe too narrow, but they were right side up.
Shirley Leung, we thank you. Let's take a taste before Shirley goes.
Okay.
The best, right? You won't go back to red bean.
Really fabulous.
You might not go back to
Thank
red
you.
bean, right?
Let's hear it for Shirley Leung. We appreciate it, Shirley. Thank
Well-
you so much.
Thank you, Shirley.
Wow, they are really
I did
good.
eat it. I ate it.
Okay, we got to go. Thank you.
Little piece.
Okay.
Okay.
See you, Shirley. Thank you for your kindness and generosity. We appreciate it.
Oh, you know something before we leave?
Yeah.
Listen to this. Jim and Margie, I'm very disappointed in your characteristic of MBTA employees. My father's a 30-plus year employee.
Oh, good.
I can count on one hand the number of days he missed. Loyal, hardworking, trustworthy, earned every cent of his pension. The only reason he retired because he was eventually spat upon. Oh, that's terrible. And threatened during his career. Okay, you know what? Credit to whoever
Exactly.
sent this. I mean, I'm sure there are a lot of good MBTA employees. In fact, it was the underlings of the MBTA
Underlings. We
that
don't call them
repeatedly tried.
underlings, but-
Well, they weren't the bosses.
Right, exactly.
That repeatedly tried to say the rails are screwed up and nobody listened to them. So for all those good employees, I didn't mean to slander or libel you. There's just not enough of them in positions of management. Anyway, we're through with the chief today. Thank God. And we're now moving on. We're going to talk with Andy Ihnatko. He's our tech guy. You know, we're going to find out about these cameras that basically will be able to like Photoshop your pictures in a way you never thought imaginable, sort of like Photoshopping on steroids. That and more is next with our tech guy, Andy Ihnatko. You're listening to Boston Public Radio, 89.7 GBH, broadcasting live from the Boston Public.
Last weekend, GBH listeners and Celtic fans enjoyed. Last weekend, GBH listeners and Celtic fans enjoyed a wonderful tribute to Brian O'Donovan in celebration of his life and work. So many of Brian's friends and colleagues took part, and it was so well received and appreciated that we thought it fitting to once again share the memories. Please join us for our encore presentation of this special tribute to Brian O'Donovan tomorrow at 3 here on GBH 89.7.
Support for Marketplace Morning Report comes from you.
And ABCD, a nonprofit organization bringing energy services to low-income residents statewide, committed to helping people get from where they are to where they want to be. BostonABCD.org/empower. And Higgins Energy Alternatives in Barrie, offering wood, gas, and pellet heat stoves and fireplaces for homes in central Massachusetts and beyond since 1975. More information at higginsenergy.com. And the Peabody Essex Museum, presenting the exhibition Bats, a colony of live fruit bats, is on view now in Salem. You can fly over to PEM.org to learn more. And Prince Lobel, a full-service law firm anchored in Boston, committed to working hand-in-hand to provide a wide range of services on matters of local, regional, national, and international reach. PrinceLobel.com.
Welcome back to Boston Public Radio. Jim Browdy and Marge Regan, broadcasting live from the Boston Public Library, streaming at youtube.com/GBH News, facebook.com/GBH News. In about 45 minutes, Lavender Darkangelo from Fitchburg and America's Got Talent, and boy, does she ever, is going to be here with her father. They're going to sing, they're going to talk to us, all those kind of great things. By the way, Kenneth, is it Chesborough, is how you pronounce it?
I think so.
Is the second Trump lawyer in 2 days to plead guilty and agree to testify. Sidney Powell yesterday, Kenneth Chesborough today. It is a huge development in these cases. He's agreed to testify any future trials, not just in Georgia, but in the federal courts as well. We're joined now by tech writer, blogger, and podcaster Andy Ihnatko. You can follow Andy at whatever it's called now, at IHNATKO. Hey there, Andy. Nice to see you.
Hey there, hi there, ho there.
Hi there.
So this sounds amazing. There's this AI image editing tools that, as you say in your memo to us, you can take a bunch of pictures and 30 seconds later, you can make everybody in the picture looking at the camera and smiling with this technology.
Yeah, this is really cool. Google announced their brand new series of phones a few weeks ago, and they're trying to pivot that as, hey, we're the AI company, now we can put AI in your phones. Now, you've used to the idea of, oh, well, Photoshop, you can fake anything, but you need Photoshop, which costs a lot of money. You need like years of experience. This new feature, like you got 4 kids in a row, you already know that one of them's going to be blinking, one of them's going to be, spitting or whatever. So you take like 4, 5, 6 pictures, hoping that one of them has all these kids making like normal expressions. But of course, no good. So this new feature, it's just the photo editor that's built into the phone will just say, okay, I can isolate each of the faces from each of that sequence of photos that you just took, and then you just simply scroll through all of the heads. So you can say, I want the kid over here to be smiling here, kid number 2, kid number 3, kid number 4, and then it will just automatically basically Photoshop it all together so that it looks like they were all smiling and no one had their finger up their nose.
So let me ask you something. If the kid has his mouth closed, do they insert like fake teeth, or what does AI do?
That's probably next. No, all it does is, again, it only works if you've already taken like this sequence of photos,
Okay.
so it can look behind, and it's conditional upon a burst of photos that was taken in the same period, and the phone, like, you didn't move from one place to another, because obviously if you tried to say, oh, well, he was so cute when he was a kid 18 years ago, could you, like, he was so full of life and so full of joy, not scowling. No, it won't do that, but basically, it's just basically to give you that good one composite photo that you're looking for. And again, anybody can do it if they have this phone, and I'm sure that this tech will be in most phones soon.
You know, by the way, unless I'm misreading, I read a lot of stories about this last night based upon your introduction of the topic to us. It can do things that are both miraculous and wonderful and incredibly scary.
Sure.
I mean, and I was saying, maybe the good news about this is too complicated for the likes of me. It's not. There's one of the things, I think you sent us this, about there was some crap beer bottles or something in a picture. Mm-hmm. You go, you circle the thing with your finger, it disappears, and what appears in it is the same grass and sand or whatever is in the rest of the background. So the potential, while it is really exciting, and I want you to tell the story about your father in a minute, which really was touching to me, because I have some similar photos with my mother. Before we get to that, this is terrifying to me at the same time. So tell me why I shouldn't be terrified.
For me, I'll just tell you from my point of view, it's a difference in philosophy. I think that technology is at its best when it gives power to everybody, instead of isolating it with just a few people who have certain kind of privileges. I know how to use Photoshop. I've been a hobbyist like this for 10 years. I have the software and I have powerful computers, so I have the ability to, in the example that I gave, like again, your friends are in a group photo at a campsite, but it was spontaneous, so there's a garbage can between like two of these people.
A garbage can, right. Yeah.
I mean, this is the sort of stuff that I'm the Photoshop guy for my family, and they'll send me these pictures like on vacation, and very carefully over a couple of hours I can remove the garbage can, replace it with the same backgrounds before. I can select the person who was on the other side of it, scooch them over, and then patch in the hole that they left behind. It takes a lot of time, but now this is something that anybody who has that phone can do, because this new feature, you just simply tap on the garbage can, it knows basically what it is. It will do, like you said, won't just simply sort of like paint it in with a neutral background. It will know that, okay, there's a beach, so that bottom should be beach. There's the skyline, so there should be sky right there. Oh, also there's kind of like rocks in the beach, so there should be rocks in the beach that we create. And then tap on the person, okay, I know what a person looks like, great, and it will slide them right over. And that's something that everybody can do now instead of just a few people. There's only one feature they introduced that concerns me.
What's that? What is it?
They have a feature that they're going to be doing later on. They call it Zoom Enhance. Where, have you ever, like, you're taking a picture of, you're here at the you're here at the BPL, you want to take a good picture of the Dancing Bacchante, but your phone is not quite close enough. So you'll do the digital zoom, but it's not really very good. So this feature will essentially invent detail that wasn't there before.
Oh.
That's the sort of thing that bothers me, because when you're doing editing of, again, sliding the garbage can over, that's still reality. This is the sort of thing where in the future someone might think, like when it tries to recreate someone's face or recreate an object in someone's hand, it will say, I don't know, the AI might say, that could be a soda can, it could be a weapon, that person could be smiling, that could be a face I don't recognize, so I'm going to make up a face that doesn't really exist. That's the kind of thing that makes me concerned.
Okay, I have three things. So I call this the white supremacist eliminator. So when Donald Trump, I'm serious, when Donald Trump has his arm around some white supremacist, that one of his staff essentially circles the white supremacist, eliminates him, and puts, I don't know, some innocent background. They can do that. They can obviously do that. I could do that. Sure. Okay,
yeah.
fine.
Now, if you get divorced, you can take away the pictures of the ex-wife.
Well, that's a very good point.
And then put the new wife in there.
It's like airbrushing. And your position is, since you can do it with your expertise, we should democratize this and let all of us eliminate white supremacists. Now, here's the second question. Can you, with your expertise, if I did this with one of these photographs, either eliminated the garbage can or eliminated Nick Fuentes or something, could you tell after I, on my phone, did the editing that I had edited it, or is it so good that you couldn't tell?
No, you'd be able to tell.
You can.
If the standard of proof, if it were a need for forensic proof, like let's say there was a lawsuit or a criminal case based on that, then you could basically say, no, here is all the hallmarks of what was left behind. Even if I just simply did an old-fashioned, like 10-year-old Photoshop edit, that could be detected.
So tell this story, because this is the wonderful part of it. Tell the story you wrote to us about with a photograph with your father.
Okay. Now, I'm of the generation that, my generation and Dad's generation, men and fathers and sons, not terribly loved each other to death, but we expressed our love through home improvement projects together, okay? So I have very few pictures of us together, and the best one of all, because he was an engineer, he was also a nerd like I am, I got my very first digital Nikon camera, and I was at his house. Oh no, it doesn't use film. Because you can take the picture, you can see it immediately. And so we just did a selfie together, and this was like in the 90s when selfies didn't exist. So I was aiming blind, and I got the most beautiful expression of we're just happy and laughing and enjoying this together. But I was aiming blind, so I got him full face. I only got like the 2/3 of my face. The other one was cut off. But I've loved it anyway because it's the best picture. And I was just messing around with Photoshop. They have new generative AI tools that are used not to fake people, but basically to do things that are really difficult. And, it's not going to be able to extend this picture to give more sides. And I will be damned. It filled in the rest of my head. And it wasn't flawless, but it was like with 20 minutes of editing, you would not really sense that there was anything wrong.
That's pretty great.
It wasn't a generic case. That's what his hairline is. He's wearing a shirt, so I should have the collar of that shirt on. It really was the sort of thing where I'm like, it restored a picture that otherwise might have been thrown away because, this is no good, it's only the left side of my face. Fortunately, I was keeping all my photos back then. I wouldn't know how important this photo was.
That's a great story.
And so I have something I wouldn't have before. And again, I'll write on the back of it, by the way, that's not really the back of my head. But it's a really good example because I think that part of our media literacy should be for everybody to understand that you can't innately trust any photo, even something that's 100 years old. You have a 75-year-old photo of your grandparents, your great-grandparents as kids at the beach, and they're all having a good time. What you don't know is that was the one instant of a 3-day vacation where everybody was getting along with each other, and they were bickering like cats and dogs for 3 days. So if everybody now has this on their phone, and they suddenly see something online where, really? This place exploded? I didn't hear anything about that. If they have the knowledge that, I did this kind of edits on my phone myself just last week, that will not make them not trust all media, but simply understand that I need extra context, I need extra information before I make a conclusion based solely on this one photo I've seen. That's a good thing, I think.
I have a friend who will go nameless that was very upset because John Gagin, you may have heard of him, he was the priest in the Spotlight movie, and he was abused hundreds of children. But this priest happened to say...
I went to jail and died in jail.
Yes, happened to say he married his daughter and came to the reception. And in every picture, or almost every picture of the reception on the video, was this priest that turned out to be one of the worst child abuse in history. The guy went bananas saying, I spent whatever grand on my daughter's wedding. I turned every page, and there's this priest looking at me. I'm going to call this person.
Why can't you say, I know who it is. Why can't you say who it is?
I just don't think I should say his name. I just don't think I should say his name.
Pretty prominent character in town, by the way.
But he would be so happy to know that he can just get rid of that priest in every one of those pictures. It doesn't have to ruin his daughter's wedding album.
And he can put Donald Trump instead, because I think he'd like that. So one piece of, I think, unadulterated good news until you tell us otherwise. Gavin Newsom is a pretty active governor out there in California.
He is.
What's the Delete Act, Andy Ihnatko?
One of the best state laws to protect consumer privacy that's ever been passed. Essentially, what it boils down to is every single data broker who collects and trades information about you digitally has to register with the state. And secondly, if you want all of your information deleted from these data brokers, you have to, the law says there has to be a one-click operation, one web page operation, a simple one-step operation that will delete all of your information from everybody all at once.
So you just search your own name in some database, and then you click.
Not even that. All you do is you simply declare that, hi, I'm Andy Ihnatko. I don't want my data being used by anybody who's operating in the state of California. And then everyone that's registered as a data broker has to check this database every 45 days and delete everything. There was a previous really good California Consumer Privacy Act, but like most of them, they had a lot of loopholes, and so it wasn't really effective. Like, you could do it as a citizen, but it was your job to track down who these data brokers are, how to contact them, what their removal policies are. This takes all that burden onto the data brokers themselves. So it's a step. It's not the final step, but it is a step forward, because once again, it makes the assumption that this is going to be a really difficult thing, and that a consumer should not be browbeaten out of asking for privacy just because it's too difficult to ask for.
And it not only would eliminate that which they already have, but if other things were to be collected about you prospectively, they couldn't do that. They couldn't retain that either.
They have to check every 45 days. They can use it for 45 days. But they can't retain it. They also, there are a lot of really careful things you have to do about this. Amongst them is the definition of the word, what is a data broker? For instance, I was surprised to learn a while back that a lot of us are familiar with the HIPAA Act, which is the law that protects medical privacy. Well, it's only limited to people defined as medical providers. So I can say that, well, I basically collect information on what pills you take, what you've been diagnosed with, what your blood pressure is, and sold it on, but I'm not I'm not a medical provider. I'm simply the maker of a phone app that helps you be in tune with your body and your wellness, and that's perfectly fine as far as HIPAA goes. So for similar reasons, if someone says, oh, I'm not a data broker, I simply make a weather app. Oh, okay, so you don't have to comply with all these rules. The only reason why you made that weather app is to collect GPS information and track people from place to place to place is then immaterial as far as the law is concerned.
You know, you're a tech guy, not a political guy, but I just wonder, because it was Google and they're pretty powerful, what the politics were. I mean, Newsom does some things in California that we seem to be unable to do in a lot of other places. So how do you manage this with Google's got a lot of money to fight something like this.
Google doesn't particularly care, because remember, they're not part of the data brokerage industry. They collect information and they protect that stuff. They will not sell any information to an outside party about me, because that's too valuable. What they will sell is access to a group of people with my kind of characteristics about it. These data brokers, however, are so awful that I'm not making this up. This is according to testimony from 2023. I think it was the Commerce Department had hearings about this, and one of the experts was saying, look, if you want to buy 1,000 names, email addresses, and phone numbers of people who have been victims of a specific violent crime, are within an age group, are now being treated for PTSD, and are of a certain have a certain credit score, it's not just something where you have to go to the dark web. You pick it out of a catalog and you buy it. That's the people that need to be. Unfortunately, Facebook and Google, I think, are a distraction. It's these hundreds and thousands of data brokers that are the real threat to everybody.
Okay, last question from me. I believe I generally ask you, I try to limit myself to one stupid question to you every time you're here. So hopefully.
Not me. I just plunged right ahead.
This will be the only one. And the only reason why 49 states won't emulate this immediately is because corporate America owns most legislative bodies. I mean, there's nothing.
Well, that's what I was just asking. How come Newsom can do what other people can't?
California has always been very proactive. They're the people who basically are responsible for all the environmental laws affecting cars, because they said, oh, by the way, all cars in California have to go to the standard, and they often become the template for other people to move forward.
Well, they eliminated affirmative action long before America. They started capping property taxes, so it's not all sweetness and light. But putting aside Newsom, I guess it is a variation of the same question you asked. Beacon Hill, the only reason they might not do it is because the data, what's the noun?
Data brokers.
The data brokers have a hell of a lot of power and money. And that will probably control the day?
Yeah, and we also have some responsibility as citizens, because the thing that I've learned, I mean, you said that, we're talking about politics instead of tech. In the past 10 years, my job has been about politics for a lot of reasons.
That's a good point.
But what I've learned in talking to people who are on the political beat is that things get done because people in legislative power will feel repercussions if they don't do something about it. Legislators have a very powerful sense of, I can give lip service to this, or I can pass a law that's not really effective, or number three, no, if I even try to spike this at all, it's going to cost me in donations or it's going to cost me in votes, so I got to do something about it. So I'm not saying that it's 100% our responsibility, because lobbying power is amazing, but nonetheless, we have to basically make it clear that every time we're at a public forum, hey, what are you doing about privacy? What are you doing about data collection? What are you doing about the fact that these data collectors can collect data on 13, 14, 15-year-old children? And basically make them very, very convinced that it's going to hurt you if you don't do something about this.
You have to do that before the Beacon Hill takes their 5-month vacation. I just want to be clear. That's in the
we can track them where they go.
That's right.
Andy, that was great stuff.
Good
to see you, Andy.
Always
thank you so much.
Thank you very much. We've been speaking with tech writer, blogger, and podcaster Andy Ihnatko. You can follow him on Twitter at Ihnatko. That is I-H as in Henry, N as in Nancy, A-T-K-O at Ihnatko. Thanks, Andy. Up next, GBH Executive Arts Editor and soon-to-be host of the new Culture Show here at GBH, Jared Bowen. He's going to give us the who, what, where, when, and why on the Culture Show, and we're going to tell us also about stuff that's going on around town right now in the arts. You're listening to Boston Public Radio, 89.7 GBH, broadcasting live from the Boston Public Library, streaming on Facebook.com/GBH News and YouTube.com/GBH News.
Hitting or paddling students is still legal in 16 states, including Texas, where a principal was arrested for leaving bruises on a student. Now the community is reacting.
We have had feedback from outside the district, some negative, but I think you always evaluate what's in the best interest of our students.
I'm Elsa Chang. Hear that story on All Things Considered from NPR News.
Today at 4, here on GBH News 89.7.
Support comes from you.
And Comcast Business. With Comcast Business Internet, internet speeds up to 10 gigs are available for your growing business. Comcast Business, powering possibilities.
Welcome back to Boston Public Radio. Jim Browdy, Marge, broadcasting live from the Boston Public Library, streaming youtube.com/GBH News, facebook.com/GBH News. Lavender and Will Darkangelo will join us to talk and sing in about 15 or 20 minutes. Do not go away. And if you're not here now physically, but you're close, I'd get here if I were you. We're joined now by GBH Executive Arts Editor Jared Bowen, who I thought, I cannot tell a lie, essentially was doing nothing for the last few months. And it turns out he was very busy with our former lead producer, Chelsea Mers, creating a fabulous new show. It's about to premiere in a couple of weeks, of which he will be the host, The Culture Show on 89.7 Radio. Congratulations and welcome, Jared Bowen.
Congratulations.
Great fun.
It's so exciting.
But
I mean it.
We should point out that we hope you're still going to be with us to talk about the arts and culture around town.
I don't care if he's with us.
Well, I do.
really don't.
And also filling in on those rare occasions when I might take a day off. You know, not that I ever want to take a day off or anything like that.
By the way, before we go ahead, Shirley Leung was kind enough to bring the mooncakes, just said she forgot to mention the bakery. It's Wing Wah Bakery in Hong Kong. Thank you, Shirley. They were great.
Yeah, how nice was that of her to come over the way
She's a
down
sweetheart.
here.
She's great.
I know, I just
She
had a
is
piece.
great.
It's really
They're
delicious.
So give us the details. I mean, what's going to be happening? What are you going to do?
When?
When, where, what, why, all those questions.
So I'll start by saying, the Culture Show is, I think you know by now that I love arts and culture. It is in every fiber of my being. I think it is so important to who we are as people and as a society. And so I will continue that work along with some fabulous colleagues whom you recognize here, of course, at GBH, and that would be Callie Crossley and Eggerby Hedwick.
Whoever he is.
Eggerby
Herwick
III, and James Bennett, a more recent colleague who's just so fabulous on music. Of course, he's been on with you.
He's great.
And so they will be rotating co-hosts and collaborators on the show. But I'm taking this philosophy of the years I've spent covering the arts and the artists, the performers, the dancers, the photographers, the writers, the poets, all within our region who are making a great difference here. So we start the first Friday in November, right after Boston Public Radio, with
Great predecessor. What do they call that? The lead-in?
The lead-in.
The lead-in.
Yeah.
We're the lead-in. Yeah. I hope that works for you, Jared.
Yeah.
So if I tumble, it's all
our
maybe.
fault.
It's all
Yeah.
So 2 to 3.
So 2 to 3 for November, just Fridays only, as we'll do a week in review, sort of looking at culture, a cultural roundup, and then the first Monday in December begins the daily version of the Culture Show. So interviews with the artists and exploration of our region's landscape, national figures, and there's no end to what we can do.
So, and by the way, from a half hour on Open Studio, which we do miss, I should say, to 5 hours, 10 times as much time. Is there a show like this anywhere, a daily hour-long show on the arts? I don't know of one.
Certainly in our region, I don't know of one, and even nationally, I'm not sure I know of a daily show. So this is why I'm so excited. And GBH has an incredibly long history. Of course, you think back to Masterpiece and some of the other arts shows that Elliot Norton had his show. Of course, Open Studio ran for 10 years. So we're a station that has been long committed to bringing access to the arts, which is our role in public media. But we're also just going to have so much fun with it, because I think there is no better time for this show to launch than right now, when so much of the world is on fire. And we need these outlets. We need escapes. We need to find beauty. We need to be entertained. But we also need to turn to the artists and the theater practitioners who are showing us ourselves and are showing us the world through their lens to make us think and process it a little bit differently.
And by the way, I want to say, all three of us are equally excited, even though Jared's the one that we were so excited. The three of us went out to dinner last night together, and despite the fact that we were asked to leave the restaurant before we were done, it was a fabulous night, wasn't it?
We had a ball. That was so much fun. I don't know why we're not doing it more regularly.
Well, because they asked us to leave because there were other people waiting for the table.
Yeah.
But obviously I've gotten over that pretty quickly. By the way, are you nervous? I mean, this is a huge undertaking. But what we do is what has been done before by us and zillions of others in talk. You're really breaking a lot of new ground here.
No, I don't think so, because I'm doing what I love, honestly.
I know that.
And for that reason, I'm not that nervous. I'm sure I will be from here on out, because you just put it in my head and planted it there.
Were you nervous when they asked us to leave the restaurant before we were done last night, or were you not?
Well,
okay, fine.
no, I was trying to think of something saucy to say about why we were kicked out of the restaurant.
Well, we were there for a while. We're drinking a lot and eating a lot. Before you go, though, say again.
No,
when
he's
the
not
start
going. He's going to tell us
No,
about
I know,
the
but I want, before we go from this topic, tell us one more time the start dates for the Friday thing, the weekly thing, and then when it becomes a daily show.
So weekly, starting the first Friday in November, is our weekly week in review, and then it becomes a daily show on December 4th.
That is unbelievable.
Yeah,
It's going to be really, really neat. I mean, just to seeing the artwork, I really miss your interviews with with actors and players and Dolly Parton and Chris Cooper and all those wonderful people, and his wife Marianne Leone, all those people that you get to do the in-depth interviews with. So congratulations. But
by the way, Marjorie and I were told we're both available the first week to come on. So. We cleared our schedules, so anytime you need us.
You and George W. Bush, people didn't know about your secret painting history.
I don't think arts and culture necessarily are forte, Jim.
But congratulations, sir.
On a very, very sad note, because we've talked to you a lot about productions of the new Repertory Theater in Watertown, it's closing.
It is. This is what a lot of us have feared as we've looked at the arts coming out of the pandemic, that not all organizations were going to survive, and now this is the first to fall. So New Repertory Theater, 40 years of presenting theater hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of productions. They're based in Watertown. They were a very vibrant theater company, a mid-level theater company, hiring great actors, presenting great works, presenting new works, pulling other pieces in from New York, and looking at older classic pieces. But it just didn't work. Coming out of the pandemic, they couldn't make the funding mechanism work anymore. Philanthropy has changed, as they cited in their press release. Attendance has also changed considerably, and there is no longer the money coming in from the federal government that got so many arts institutions through these first few years. I remember on this show when we had Catherine Peterson of Arts Boston on, and she predicted that this would happen. She predicted that the actual pandemic wasn't going to be the hardest time because that money was coming in and because people who were able to give were keeping organizations afloat, but instead it would be the first few years after the pandemic, and this is the time we're in now. And I think that people are very concerned for any arts organization that doesn't have a hefty endowment that this is going to be challenging for them to keep going.
So does that mean when I'm reading the story, as sad as it is for the New Repertory Theater itself, you worry, and I think you're intimating, or maybe you're more than intimating, this may not be the last of these smaller sort of theaters.
No, I think if you look at Fringe Theater in Boston, some of it's either slowed down or it hasn't come back. Some other companies seem to be taking a slower approach now. I think we worried about New Rep. They also had a change in leadership right around the time of the pandemic. It was great for Michael Bobbitt, who went on to be the executive director of the Massachusetts Cultural Council, but also in this time it left New Repertory Theater without a leader, and they tried a new model, which everybody applauded them. I applauded them for. They had 3 artists come together and lead artistically the organization. They changed the format of how a theater could be constructed, so instead of going from September to May or June, as most theaters do, they just wanted to do program throughout the season. And they were doing concerts and new works, but it just couldn't be sustained.
You know what I wonder about the economics in general of the theater business? You know, you go to the movies, it's $15 or $10. I guess if you get a lot of popcorn and stuff, it's more. But theater's expensive. And you want to be able to pay the people that work there, the actors and all the backstage people, a decent wage. You've almost got to have huge amounts of money backing you up, because theater tickets, what, like $100, $60, $80, you know? How does that all work?
The financials are very difficult for the performing arts. Somebody who's on the board of an opera company once explained to me that an opera is an inherently money-losing proposition because the gate, that's what they call the ticket revenue, it doesn't cover the production. So this is why you have to rely on philanthropy or underwriting or big donors. But now it's even more of a crisis point. Actually, this week, the National Endowment for the Arts came out with a survey that they do every 5 years, and attendance is down almost in every realm. It's down in musical theater, plays, museums and galleries. Movies saw a 16% drop.
Except for Taylor Swift. She's the only thing that's getting people in the theaters.
Exactly, and digital. 82% of people are now engaging with digital content, where I think their surveys show that from 2017 to 2022, only 10% of people saw musical theater. So people got used to being introduced to digital entertainment and whatnot during the pandemic, and they've stayed there. People have also moved away. The subscriptions have changed so that people aren't really anticipating what they want to see anymore, except for maybe a day or two in advance. And it's really hard to bank on how your production is going to do if you don't know the numbers in advance.
And you know what else? I mean, we are unusual in so many aspects of the United States of America for what we don't support.
Yeah.
The government really barely supports the arts at all compared to, European countries, certainly. We just don't put a value on it.
No, we don't, and we never have. And this is part of the reason why I'm so excited about the culture show, is because we understand that culture and arts are part of our everyday life, even if you don't realize it. From the way you dress, you're designing yourself, to the soundtrack of your life, the music that you go to what you watch that soothes you. And so this is my passion, to talk about this and reacquaint people with this, and also have other people, government, for instance. This is why I had Governor Healy and Mayor Wu on Open Studio, is to talk about how they feel government should have a more participatory, i.e. funding role in the arts.
What do you think is the soundtrack of our lives? Do you know? I'm not Exactly. Okay, so let's talk about some things that I am dying to. Well, he said it, so I'm just curious to know if you.
You
whatever.
have a song that you kind of always identify with, right?
Which is what?
I don't know. You have to tell me.
Okay, well,
and
I'll tell
us.
you some other time.
Okay.
Mr. Swindle's traveling peculiarium sounds to me spectacular. Don't disabuse me. What is it, first of all?
So I think the best way to describe this is if you were to think of what the Cirque du Soleil companies might do at their secret late-night after party. This is what's happening.
Well, that's pretty great, actually.
Mr. Swindle's Traveling Peculiarium, which, by the way, is 18 plus for good reason.
I love that.
So this is under the Big Top near the Harpoon Brewery in the Seaport through November 5th. And so it's a small Big Top, which is really, really great because they have a lot of the kinds of acts that you would see in a Cirque du Soleil show. So you have the acrobats, and you have the contortionists, and the strong man. But because you're in this intimate space, you are so close. There was at one point that I had to look down. My seatmate was looking away because it was just so precarious watching this man create the sculpture of chairs and climb all the way up almost to the top of the Big Top. And you think, my goodness, this is going to come tumbling down. But you're so close, you can see him wincing, which I think is somewhat theatrical. But also at the same time, you know that these chairs would come tumbling down. So that's one part of it. And then it's pretty bawdy, it's pretty salty, there's a little bit of nudity, and it's not a circus I had ever seen before.
Through November 5th. Sounds fabulous.
Jim would be, you have to just dress in a cloak because they pulled a couple of people up from the audience. I was so thankful I was seated where I was.
By the way, the beauty of this, even though he is the arts guy, the one thing we totally have in common is you like being called upon without any advance notice almost as much as I do, which is zero.
Yeah,
is
that's
that
great.
correct?
Exactly.
Yeah, you don't want to be called to be part of the show.
It is mortifying.
So one last thing. Tell us about John Singer Sargent and how apparently he orchestrated all these what people are going to wear, how the hair was going to be done, the whole thing.
Yeah, this is really a must-see exhibition right now that just opened at the Museum of Fine Arts, and it's called Fashioned by Sargent. It's on view through January 15th. The MFA here in Boston is the only place on this side of the Atlantic that you'll see the show. After it wraps here, it moves to London. And it tells the story of John Singer Sargent. To reacquaint people with him, he was American-born but grew up in Europe, traveling between London and Paris, a largely self-taught artist. Also, he had huge Boston connections, including painting murals right here at the Boston Public Library and at the Museum of Fine Arts, but really became famous for his society portraits and how he portrayed everyone from Isabella Stewart Gardner to John D. Rockefeller to people with noble lineages and cascading jewels in Europe. But what this show, curated by Erica Hirschler, shows us is that, first of all, John Singer Sargent considered himself a dressmaker to some degree, because what they do here also is reunite some of the portraits with the garments that the original sitters wore.
The actual garments?
Which is pretty incredible.
Oh, that is great.
Like this gorgeous black silk opera coat worn by Lady Sassoon right next to her portrait. But Sargent would shape that garment. He would pin it. He would drape it. Often his sitters would come to them with their House of Worth gown. I just learned about this. House of Worth would be the equivalent of Dior or Chanel today. It was the go-to designer for that period. We're talking about the late 1800s to the early 1900s. But he would say, no, that doesn't work, but I like the dress you were wearing when you came in today. He also, if you look at these paintings, mostly painted only in black and white for the clothing, because it presented such a challenge to be able to show black, which is really variations of gray and
that famous
dark
Madame
blues.
X, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Madame X, by the way, is here.
Really?
The portrait of Madame X caused so much scandal because people said that her dress looked like it was about to fall off, and he had painted her shoulder strap slipping down.
Very sexy, yes.
Normally is that.
Is her dress there?
Her dress is not there,
okay.
unfortunately.
All
It's
right.
normally at the Met in New York.
It
So
is?
it's a huge loan to be able to get it here. But in addition to all of that, Sargent, what he really loved was people, and it looks like he really, really loved the transgressors. He loved the poets and the performers. He loved people like Violet Page, who was one of his, I think her last name was Page, was one of his childhood friends who became a writer, but adopted the name Vernon Lee and very masculine dress. So there's a whole section of the show called Sporting with Gender, and you see how he's rendering people not as they would be depicted typically in that society, because at that time, just like today, they were talking about gender fluidity and why are women dressing as men and asserting themselves in a more masculine way, because it's a time when women are re-entering society. Men are suddenly feeling a little bit more comfortable in what was classified as more feminine clothing and feminine gestures. And for me, that was the heart of this show, to understand he did the society portraits for the bread and butter, but this is what he really seemed to love and didn't shy away from painting at a time when people considered it very provocative.
Now, I've been thinking while you were just talking to Marjorie, I could come on and talk about Nordic noir television. Would you not agree? I'm a borderline expert
yeah, but I like to
on
call
Nordic
it Scandi noir. Scandi noir.
Or it's the same thing,
yeah.
Scandi noir. So we consider that. Who do I talk to? Your producer?
You have to talk to Chelsea. Yeah.
Chelsea.
Yeah,
well, she used to work with us. Yeah.
No,
well, she left us, so that may not be a good sign. You know
get
what I mean?
enough time in front of the microphone.
Yeah.
You know what
and
I mean?
also, I have to tell you, I know I speak for Marjorie. We are beyond excited.
We are
about
excited.
This thing.
We're very excited.
You are the only person who could pull this off. No, I'm serious, and we're really proud of you, really excited, and can't wait. And we're thrilled you're following us too.
I am so excited.
Right here at the
about
Boston
myself.
Public Library too. The Jared sandwich will be featured every day now.
Have we talked to the Newsfeed Cafe about this? Are they on board for the spicy Jared?
Think so.
I think they have to be now.
Spicy
it's on record.
Jared, that's right.
Jared, congratulations. Good luck to you, Chelsea,
Thank
and everybody else
you very
involved.
much.
Thanks
Just
so
a
much.
few more days before the debut of the new culture show, and we're very thrilled about it, Jared.
Really great.
As we just said, thank you very much. We've been speaking with GBH Executive Arts Editor Jared Bowen. The culture show that we've been talking about is going to launch on Fridays in November, and then it will be every day right after BPR starting in December. Okay, coming up. Big things for singer Lavender Darkangelo following her astounding run on America's Got Talent. Watch out, Las Vegas. But before all that, she's going to join us right here at the Boston Public Library alongside her father, Will Darkangelo, and you're going to hear some...
Welcome back to Boston Public Radio. Jim Browdy and Marjorie Egan. I don't say this often. We are really excited about the next few minutes. We're broadcasting live from the Boston Public Library, and if you're not here, stream online immediately at youtube.com/GBH News and facebook.com/GBH News. We're joined now by Lavender Darkangelo. She captured the heart of America on America's Got Talent. She captured Marjorie and my heart and our listeners when she was here with her couple of dads a couple of months ago. Since the show ended, she's been very busy. Well, I was going to say, she's obviously outsourcing. We'll talk about that. Her new album, Mosaic, but she's been a ton of places. She's going to a ton of places. We'll talk about all of that with her in a minute. She's joined by her father, Will Darkangelo, and her other father, Jamie, couldn't be here in person, but he is all over Will's shirt. That's almost good enough. Lavender and Will, we are thrilled to see you both. Welcome back to Boston Public Radio.
Oh, thank you.
Yay,
thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
So, Lavender, a lot of people have watched that show. Tons of people have watched the show, America's Got Talent, Simon Cowell, Heidi Klum, and all that. It's a great show. You made it all the way to the finals, which was absolutely spectacular. What was that like, that whole journey? I mean, it was an incredible triumph.
Well, it was surreal because, like, these are things that I have fantasized about since I was about like 4 or 5 years old. So I guess there's a part of me that feels like this isn't really real. This is just you on the couch again. Just like daydreaming. And so, yeah.
You know, I read where you briefly forgot your lyrics. I think for anybody who either plays an instrument or sings, that's one of the scariest things when you don't have your music in front of you. You can forget. So how did you handle that? That's so nerve-wracking.
It's funny because like I don't know why I blanked out on the words. Like so like there's like a brief sound check that they do in a way that the audience can't hear. And
right before the performance itself.
Yeah, and I blanked out on the second line. Have you ever felt forgotten in the middle of nowhere? And I don't know why, because I wasn't even nervous.
The irony of forgetting your lyrics on that line, too.
So I actually went on the show when I did the song on the finale. I was nervous because I was nervous that I would blank out again. But I wasn't nervous because of stage fright.
Yeah.
Well, only tens and tens of millions of people were watching.
Yeah, what are you supposed to do? You're supposed to just go do tra-la-la-la-la if you forget the line? What is it? What is the advice?
But that only telegraphs the mistake.
Yeah, I guess so.
So Will Darkangelo, I got a text from you. You love the dog and the dog owner who won? What's the deal with that?
Adrian and his dog Hurricane were the nicest two people. The dog. But
nicest two people. But I'm bummed.
And Adrian was on our semifinals week as well. So we spent like every morning having breakfast with him. Not the dog, but with Adrian. And he's just the nicest guy. Also, the day of the results show, Lavender and I and a friend of ours spent the whole afternoon waiting for our next call time in sort of the contestant holding area on the day that he actually won the show. And he wanted a souvenir of Lavender for luck. So one of the confetti petals that they blow during it, she signed one for him and he's tucked it in his wallet.
You know, Lavender, beyond watching you perform and getting to know you a little bit last time you were here, I went on social media after your performance, and I have to say, I don't know if I've ever seen people respond about inspiration from your performance and your life. And, you know, everybody, people in the disabled community, and I know you're a disabled person's advocate extraordinaire, everybody talking about how in some way you actually changed their life. What did this mean to you to not just be on that show, but to mean so much to so many people?
Well, it's changing my negative beliefs. I mean, like I grew up not feeling accepted, not feeling loved, and it's awesome that all I have to do to feel loved is to just touch people's hearts and to show people that you will be found because I got found and like just paying it forward. Like it feels really good in my heart to do that.
Well, it should feel really good. So Lavender and Will Darkangelo are with us.
I think, is it time for a song?
Yeah, now, did you two write a song together from what we understand?
Nope. Well, there's a story to this.
I did, she said.
Well, and I wrote the bridge to it. She wrote the verse and the chorus. And what happened was the after-school program that I created, The Tribe.
Which is where you two met.
Which is where we met, yes. When I formed that, that's when we met, when Lavender approached me. But a few years into the program, two kids died about 6 weeks apart from one another. One from cystic fibrosis and another in a house fire.
Yeah.
And so when that happened, Lavender had always wanted to write music. She had written a little something. So
I sat at the piano and I was like, never had the chance to sing.
It just kind of came out. And she's like, I have a verse and choruses, like 2 verses and a chorus and stuff, and I'd like to do this song. And I listened to it. I'm like, the only thing this thing needs is a bridge. And so I'll add the bridge. And now we sing it together.
And so you're going to sing this together now?
Together, yeah.
What's the name of the song, Lavender?
It's called Will I Ever.
Will I Ever, Lavender and Will Darkangelo.
You ready, honey?
Yep.
Okay.
Chance to say goodbye. I never realized how much you really meant to me, till I found that letter saying that you're gone. I could not stop crying, wondering how I'd ever move on. again. Do you know how much I'll miss you, friend, in my heart? You're still here with me. Can we rewind? Let's go back to day one, when our friendship had first begun. You stood up for me, you helped me fight my fears. I wish you were still here. The tears keep falling when I realize you're gone. You're gone. I don't know how, but I know I've got to move on. Whoa, whoa. Will I ever hear your voice again? Will I ever hear your laugh again? Do you know how much I miss you, friend, in my heart? You're still here with me. And everybody knows, not all the pain will go, not all the pain, but all the love remains. Will I ever hear your voice again? Will I ever hear your laugh again? Do you know how much I miss you, friend, in my heart? You're still here with me, in my heart. You're still here with me.
Oh, my God. Lavender
If anybody
and
has
Will
lost
D'Angelo.
anyone, if you've lost anyone due to COVID, whatever it was, that song is for y'all.
Yeah, that
That is so beautiful, you two. Congratulations,
That was actually its
Lavender.
broadcast premiere, you know.
Was it?
Was
Oh
it
my
really?
God.
Okay, we're very honored to be the broadcast premiere. Absolutely no
How's the
question about
album gone there, Lavender Dark Angelo?
Well, it's going. We're working on some stuff right now.
You
We've
are?
got 2 Diane Warren songs that she's going to be singing
I
one
know.
of them. That's going to be, right now. But then there's a second one that Diane recommended for us. We're going to focus on those first and
Yep.
send those to her and see if she's willing to help out with that. And
Fabulous.
We've got tracks already recorded, and we're still picking
Yep.
songs, right?
Yep, we are.
And what about Las Vegas? I hear you got a
Oh,
big
yeah.
thing going on there pretty soon. What's happening?
Do you want to tell them
Lavender?
about it?
So I got invited to sing at Las Vegas, and I'm doing 4 shows.
4 weeks of shows.
4 weeks of shows. I mean, what the heck?
Little difference.
Like one in February, one in March. I mean, no, not March.
February,
April, May, and
September. And we got rehearsals in December for
Yeah.
5 days to prepare for it. And yeah, so it's at the Luxor, so you get that great experience.
I'm really excited because like one of the things that I love about AGT that we don't really talk about is the contestants, like the social aspect of like just eating breakfast with the contestants. And I think it's important for me to point out that I'm excited about the camaraderie that's going to come with Vegas.
Yeah.
Well, that was one of the most. I thought it was kind of vicious and backbiting and everybody trying to screw everybody else. So I was so surprised. And you don't think of Simon Cowell as kind of Mr. Empathy and congeniality. But you guys have disabused me of that notion. I mean, you seem to have wonderful relationships with the show itself, with the people that ran the show, and the contestants.
It's true. Actually, on the way in, we were talking about, because a reporter had asked about, like what her most important moment was, and she was trying to come up with a moment that was about the show itself. When I'm like, are you sure that that's your favorite moment? Because I'm pretty sure hanging out in the pool during the semifinals week with Lambros
and his sister.
And his sister.
Yep.
That was like more fun for her than anything else, that is as exciting as all the performance parts were. It was hanging out with
Because
people.
you're staying in a nice hotel, you're having a nice breakfast, and you're doing the, the relaxing and stuff. But
you also, I want to talk about camaraderie for a second. All we are is viewers, and we're lucky enough to know you both and Jamie. But watching, I thought the Heidi Klum affection for you was totally real. It is.
It is
isn't
real.
it?
Yeah.
Yeah, and she's actually very responsive when we text her. She texts right back, and we're doing a show on our local public access station tomorrow. They're doing this big special at Fitchburg State University with a live audience and everybody.
Great.
The Barbara and You Show, which Barbara Foster has been doing this show for over 40 years. She's like the longest running television host in the United States.
Is she? Wow.
They asked, could maybe Heidi can send in a video for that, and I'm like, okay. I was kind of nervous about overstepping the fact that she gave us her number, but I texted her and I said, I asked, and she's like, of course. She sent it in 20 minutes, along with a selfie of her and her mom, and then chit-chatting with me for a little bit too.
Fabulous.
So it was like, the love was real.
Lavender, last time you were with us when we met you, you talked about your long-term goals, not just your short-term goals, and the long-term goals around a school. Could you describe to people what your hope is there?
Well, this is why I went to Cleveland.
We were in Cleveland last week.
Yep. So I want to create a school, and I don't know if you could say it's kind of unheard of, but it's where there's no classes. It doesn't start out with any classes, and it starts out by playing and doing field trips, and then the kids tell us or it doesn't have to be kids. The students tell us what their interests are. Like, oh, what's a worm? Or, hey, I'm curious about why the animals feel why are the animals endangered? Tell me why. And that's what forms a class. And I know that there are a lot of schools that sort of do this, but I want to create a school where you don't graduate, where you could be 42 years old and come here.
And you go where your curiosity is, essentially, right?
Let's say if you lost your job and you don't know how to earn your keep, but you want to learn some sort of foundation. You need some sort of foundation to get back on your feet.
And was this because school was not what you'd hoped it to have been when you were like in third grade or fifth grade? Okay.
Yeah.
It was difficult because the Fitchburg public school system did the best they could with what they had to work with, and the people were wonderful.
Right.
And I worked in the Fitchburg public school system. So did my mother.
Yeah,
she
they're
retired
actually
from
really
there.
cool people. It's just it wasn't what
It was
they
like a
didn't
really
know how to.
traditional Orthodox environment, and not all of us, myself included, fit in to a square space
well, we
like
should
that.
say, and Lavender is obviously a very, very, I say you have autism, but very, very high functioning, obviously, person with autism, and you're challenged with your sight. You can't see. So these are things that a lot of times schools don't do.
Well, actually, the irony of that, Marjorie, is that I had a lot of support regarding my blindness, a lot of assistive technology, and a teacher who, did things with me orally, a teacher who brailled things for me. So my blindness was fine. But because I am so articulate, that when it came to my comprehension issues, it was more like, well, you're just not listening. You know what I mean? Like it's.
They couldn't really accommodate the autism as easily.
Yeah.
Also, she didn't even get her official autism diagnosis until after she graduated from high school.
I did get something that was called PDD at the time, and now it's out of date. It's a out of date form of autism. But yeah.
Speaking of schools, could you, Will, tell us again how you all met, how this family came together?
Yeah, well, I was a substitute teacher and a mentor at Fitchburg High School. I had gone back there to work because I had been badly bullied when I was a student at Fitchburg High School back in the 80s. And so I thought this was a great way of feeling better about myself and being around kids and maybe facing some of that. And so I wanted to start an after-school program that would sort of address that, but around the music, because I had been a professional singer for many years. And I'd written music and just wanted to record an album, but I didn't want to do it with my jazz ensemble, as wonderful as they were. So I thought if I get together a bunch of, eager kids who might need an opportunity the same way that I did. So we recorded a whole album with 250 people on it called Strange Among the Different. And when I first started that program, Lavender came right up to me in the cafeteria with her aide, Miss Hill, and she's like, I have perfect pitch. Can I be in your band? And Miss Hill's like, don't brag about that. I'm like, nope, you can brag about that all day.
I remember,
You know?
Will, you had said it's just the same thing as somebody saying that in a resume. Like, that's not bragging.
Oh, yeah, it's not
I remember.
bragging. Your resume's not bragging. I was very happy to know that
Yeah.
she had perfect pitch. I'm like, absolutely. Whether you had perfect pitch or not, you'd be welcome to be in the tribe.
Well, you know, Will, before you guys sing again, or Lavender sings again, I hope now that we are seeing so many more children diagnosed with autism that things have improved, that we are much better at
Well,
dealing
we
with
were
these.
really surprised. Like Lavender mentioned that we were in Cleveland last week. We went to the YAS Educational Prize, their gala that they have every year, and they award $1 million grant to education innovation. There were 64 semifinalists there. We were really surprised at how much farther we've come in our understanding of how to teach people with not just autism, but like ADHD and other types of neurodiversity, that and how much more open it is. And then when you have Lavender coming out saying, actually, I have limitations, I also have gifts. And, you know, be aware that if you've met one person on the spectrum, you've only met one person on the spectrum, and we're all different. And so this sort of like diverse need for accommodation, it's okay. It's okay to ask for it when you need it. And some people like me with, you know, wasn't diagnosed with ADHD until I was 30. I didn't even know that I had needs.
Yeah.
And so I would want to be a student at Lavender School as well, because I have things that I'm curious about, and I don't necessarily do well in an orthodox environment. So I'm really encouraged by how the world has moved forward on this issue.
So Lavender, in a second you're going to sing by yourself, but what's it like? I have to say, I love hearing you by yourself. I hope you think this the right way.
You're gonna say that?
But when you sing with your father,
Yeah, the
I
harmony.
melt. I cannot. How much do you love singing with Will?
Oh, I love it. I feel like it's, I don't know, it's like meant to be, like this synced feeling.
Yeah, like the vibration just works together
It
somehow.
does.
So beautiful and so
I'm
great.
so glad you feel that way.
Oh my
we
God!
feel
So
that way too.
What are you going to sing for us now, Lavender?
Well, I'll be singing the song that Diane wrote. It's called Only Love Can Hurt Like This.
Before you sing though, can you hear okay well enough in the headset?
Yes.
Yes, okay, and you have water right in front of you if you want a sip of that.
Yep.
Only Love Can Hurt, Lavender D'Arcangelo.
I tell myself you don't mean a thing, and what we've got no hold on me. But when you're not there, I just crumble. I tell myself I don't care that much, but I feel like I die till I feel your touch. Only love can hurt like this. Only love can hurt like this. Must have been a deadly kiss. Only love can hurt like this. But it's the sweetest pain, burning hot through my veins. Love is torture, makes me more sure that only love can hurt like this. Your kisses burn into my skin, and only love can hurt like this. Only love can hurt like this. Your kisses burn into my skin. Only love can hurt like this. Only love can hurt like this. And it must have been a deadly kiss.
The fabulous,
great.
fabulous Lavender D'Arcangelo.
We have been speaking and
Oh
listening,
my
as Jim
God.
just said.
But
to the
wait,
voice-
before you go, how do we follow
Oh,
you
yeah.
guys? How do we I don't mean we. How does everybody?
We're on all the socials.
You are.
And the GoFundMe for the album, too. Tell me about that.
Yeah, the GoFundMe's going really well. We've exceeded our goal, and so everything that people donate, and they can find that. They can just Google, Lavender and GoFundMe. You can find the link to that.
It's also on the website.
And it's on the website, too.
LavenderDarkAngelo.com.
Right. We can remember that.
LavenderDarkAngelo.com, and you can find all of the links to the social media there. She's Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook,
I started
of course.
a TikTok recently.
And a TikTok, even that, yes.
Yeah, we're covered.
You were covered, yeah. So it's great. We love being in touch with everybody, too.
Lavender, I want to tell you, I hope this means something to you because it means something to me. If I had to pick one segment that we've done in the last year that I would like to do over and over again every day, it's when you're here with your dad or dads. This is just so wonderful. You are
thank you
spectacular, and we can't thank you enough for coming down today. And Will, we love seeing you too.
I'm so glad to be here. This is just such a special thing to do. We are big fans of you guys.
Come back soon, and we're big fans of yours. Will and Lavender Darkangelo, and tell Jamie he looks great on the shirt.
I will.
And Lavender, of course, was a finalist in America's Got Talent. She's a disability rights advocate and all-around big-time star with her very fabulous father, Will. Thank you again for coming in. Oh, by the way, I'll just repeat, if you want to contribute to Lavender's GoFundMe for her upcoming album or just generally follow her career, the website, as Lavender just said, but I'll repeat it, LavenderDarkAngelo.com. After a quick break, it has been 50 years since the release of The Exorcist. We're going to talk scary movies a little bit before Halloween next on Boston Public Radio. Do you love them? Do you hate them? Let us know. We are broadcasting live from the Boston Public Library, streaming at youtube.com/GBH News and facebook.com/GBH News.
Welcome back to Boston Public Radio. Jim Browdy and Marge Egan, broadcasting live from the Boston Public Library, streaming at youtube.com/GBH News, facebook.com/GBH News. Before we continue, was that spectacular?
They are so talented. Both of them are just so talented.
And what kind of people, too. Just spectacular.
Yep.
It was a joy. So 2023 marks 50 years since the horror movie of all horror movies was first released in theaters. We're, of course, talking about The Exorcist, so viscerally disturbing that some viewers allegedly fainted or vomited at its most shocking scenes. Oh. That green stuff, the head spinning around, all that kind of stuff. So with Halloween upon us almost, and chill in the air, we're going to end today by asking listeners about their favorite, I don't know what to call them, horror movies, scary movies. Please leave the shock gore out of this discussion. So we don't want to hear about Human Centipede fans where 3 people were stitched together.
We don't want to hear about that.
We're talking about, we're calling it respectable horror, like the Amityville horror, The Ring, or even some of the campier varietals.
Friday, the 13th. You may only see it once, but that will be enough. Friday, the 13th.
So, or maybe you're a fan of the new era of horror and prefer to have a panic attack watching Ari Aster's, that's how I pronounce the name, Midsummer. Either way, we want to know what your favorite horror movies are at 877-301-8970. And in light of the fact this is yet another topic about which Marjorie and I know nothing, when you identify the movie, you have to describe it to us a little bit. Now, you and I said this morning, when we were meeting with Aiden and Nicole, we hadn't seen a scary movie in ages. In fact,
I realize I'm wrong.
I did.
Yeah,
Get Out.
I saw Get Out. That was
fabulous.
Great. I saw Get Out. I saw The Sixth Sense. That was really
You
good
did?
too. Yeah.
Well, here's a little sound from this modern horror classic, Jordan Peele's brilliant 2017 film, Get Out. The main character, Chris, who's relevant to say is black, as I assume you know if you saw it, is visiting the girlfriend's very white family for a weekend getaway. One of the only other black people there is the family's maid. Here's some sounds of an exchange between the two of them.
There's too many white people, I get nervous, you know.
Oh, no. 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 Aren't you something? That's not my experience. Not at all.
That was a great
movie. And
film.
It's one of those movies where you suddenly realize what's going on and you just kind of get nauseous thinking about how badly things could turn out.
So do you have a favorite, by the way?
Well, I thought that was a really good movie. You know what haunts me still?
What?
It's the 50th anniversary, is the music, Tubular Bells music from The Exorcist.
Oh, play it. We have
Can
it.
we play a little bit of that?
You're dancing to it, though. That's not haunting if
Well,
you're
he
dancing.
made a whole album. I remember getting the album. Those were the days you still had albums, and it seemed like kind of weird to be playing this song about such a scary movie. And then the other one, the Sixth Sense with Bruce Willis.
You saw that?
Yes, I thought I've seen more of these than I thought I had. Now that I'm looking at the ones.
And what was that about?
That are on the list. It's about this little kid who sees dead people.
Oh.
Want to play a little sound from that?
Why not?
This is some iconic sound from
We'll
one
get to
of
your
the
calls in a
all-time
second.
great horror movies. The Sixth Sense. Here it is.
I see dead people.
In your dreams? While you're awake? Dead people like in graves and coffins?
Walking around like regular people. They don't see each other. They only see what they want to see.
Same with me. I only see what I want to see. Before we go to the calls, there's one other. You know what I realized I saw on a plane somewhere, I think to Florida, unfortunately, last year. What's the movie with the clown in it? The Stephen King. It. What's the name of the clown?
Oh, yeah, that was pretty...
Pennywise. Thank you all. Everybody knew that one.
Yeah.
Okay, let's take some calls.
You know what? That is the #1 most top grosser. It from 2017. Yep, taking the top spot. No, I did not. I did not see it. But
it's very
the
uplifting
the
film,
Sixth Sense.
actually.
That was #2.
It was?
Yep.
Okay,
it's
fine.
huge. And I Am Legend. We can talk about that in a couple of minutes. That's #3.
Let's go to
Anyway, what do you think?
Angela in Rentham. What's your favorite? I don't know. Scary, horror, whatever it is, movie. Welcome to the show.
Thanks. Well, you should definitely see Sixth Sense because that's fantastic. But Halloween, the original Halloween, with Michael Myers, I went to see it in high school, with my boyfriend, with the arm around, your back. And it was just terrifying to a young teenage Angela. And it's so, if I hear the music, and,
Thank you, John.
There it is. Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Wait a second. I didn't see Halloween, but isn't he cutting people up and that kind of thing, or am I wrong?
Well, he is. He's after a bunch of teenagers who are babysitting.
Right.
And then, they go to the psychiatric hospital to get him. The doctor does, but he's already gone. He's going back to town to get Jamie Lee Curtis.
Yeah, that's when. And then when the thing when she when she picked up the phone, Angela. Remember the phone rings and she picks up the phone. Tell me what happens.
Well, is that when he's just breathing?
What doesn't she realizes he's in the house, right?
That's a different movie. That's a different horror movie called He's in the House. That's separate.
Whoops. Sorry.
Oh, that's the one that was starring Brett Kavanaugh, actually.
No, it's Jamie Lee Curtis in that one too.
Yeah, he's calling from inside the house, but at the end, Jamie Lee finally kills him, and he's outside laying on the ground dead. And then they cut away, and then they go back and look, and he's gone. He's not on the ground dead anymore.
I love those moments.
Yeah.
And he does come back. Angela, that was a great start. Thank you. We really appreciate it. Angela, thanks for the call. Did you ever see Halloween? Oh, you did?
Yes, I saw
So
Halloween.
you saw all these
I guess I've
movies.
seen more than I thought.
Did you ever see Last House on the Left? I realized I saw that.
No, is that a really good one?
That's one where in the beginning there's like an arm It's not. That's I'm like. It's really no. I don't know.
And then the one that I saw when I was a kid, made me petrified of birds the rest of my life, was of course Alfred Hitchcock.
You want to know
Alfred
something?
Hitchcock's The Birds.
Alfred Hitchcock's films are when would he die? Like 40 years ago or something?
know.
I saw a Rear Window, which
That
is
was
with
very
Jimmy
scary.
Stewart, and The Birds, maybe 3 years ago. The Birds with Tippi Hedren, and I don't know if people don't see Alfred Hitchcock stuff, you never really see, like in Psycho, you never see the actual stabbing of what's her name. Janet Leigh, thank you, John. You almost do, but The Birds is so incredibly terrifying, and it's got to be 60 years since it was made.
It's
one
really
of the most
old,
terrifying
but
scenes
it
ever.
stands up, and also it makes you petrified of birds for like weeks.
Remember,
after
she's
you
in the
see
telephone booth, and all of a sudden the birds start coming, and then they start coming.
I mean, and they're trying to drive
Oh, my
away,
God.
with like millions of birds all over the place. By the way, John, do we have any sound of Psycho from the? That was the one where Janet Leigh gets killed.
We have
in
a
the
little
shower.
music, apparently. Let's hear the music.
Yeah, let's hear that.
Oh, is that the stabbing? That's when she's getting stabbed. Okay, fine. That's enough.
Yeah.
That was 1960. That was 63
Yeah, that's a
years
really
ago.
old one.
I saw What's-His-Face, the star on the street in Chelsea in New York City once. I was very excited. Anthony Perkins. Thank you, John. John, you should be doing the segment, and I should be back there. Stephen Somerville, you're next on Boston Public Radio. In honor of the 50th anniversary of The Exorcist, we're talking about scary movies. Hi, Steve.
Hey, how are you?
Excellent.
Best scary movie? Well, it's not a scary movie. It's a horror movie, kind of a B movie that's a horror movie.
Yeah.
Called The Baby.
What
in the 70s.
What happens?
Well, it's about these three women who keep some guy captive as a baby. It's pretty funny, actually.
So I've never heard of it. Is it horror, or is it is it okay in the end kind of thing?
Oh, it's a horror movie.
It's a horror movie. Okay, all right. Hey.
Yeah. It's on YouTube if you want to look at it. I mean, it's pretty funny. And there's another movie called Butcher, Baker, Nightmare Maker.
I'm sure that's an upbeat film too, but the butcher part is sort of a.
Christy McNichols' brother.
No.
They tried to make into a sex symbol during this movie, but
didn't work.
Yeah, it was a great movie as well. That's also on.
Whatever.
YouTube or whatever.
Butcher, whatever. Steve, thanks for the call.
Thank you very
We
much. A
appreciate
lot
it.
of people are emailing The Shining, which was with Jack
That-
Nicholson.
I saw that. That was fabulous.
That's it's scary. Invasion of the Body Snatchers. That's
Is
another
that
big one to people.
Here's Johnny? Is that in The Shining? I can't remember. It is.
Yes,
Thank you, John.
That's
Appreciate
pretty
it.
scary. Yeah, Damien Omen and The Shining. Damien Omen and The Shining. Damien was a very bad little boy, as I recall.
He was?
Yes.
Well,
I
you've
think
apparently seen a lot of
I
these.
guess I've seen more than I thought I had.
What did you think of The Exorcist, by the way?
I was petrified. I had to run around with a cross for like 2 months after the movie because you thought you were going to get, blessing myself furiously.
By the way, from what I read today, I wasn't aware of this. The technology.
based on a real story.
No, well, I know that, but the technology was way ahead of its time, apparently.
I don't know.
So I don't think I'd ever seen anyone's head do a 360
Linda
on film.
Blair.
Linda Blair.
Linda
Very
Blair,
good,
360.
Marjorie.
Yeah, that was really a disgusting
Yeah,
part
I'd
of
like
the
to
movie.
see someone else do that.
James in North Falmouth, thank you for
Hey,
calling.
James, what's your deal?
I got a couple for you.
Please.
One of them is a lot of horror films, American or Western horror films, originally came from Japanese versions.
Yeah.
Here's one that did not get a Western version. It's called Audition.
What happens in that?
Basically, the plot is,
What you're going to tell us? What happens in it? Go ahead.
Yeah, what happens in it is a fellow loses his wife and is persuaded that he should remarry, and so he conducts a bunch of auditions to find a new wife, and becomes enthralled with a girl none of whose resume references pan out.
Ooh.
And gradually the movie builds up. I won't give much away, but it becomes extremely horrific.
Well, that's good too. We'll check it out.
seeing.
Japanese film Audition. Thank you,
You know
James.
what I think it's interesting?
What's that?
Who likes to watch horror movies and who doesn't? I mean, like.
Well, they're huge, by the way, with
there's a
young
big
kids right
schism.
now.
Yeah, but within families, you find like with my kids, my youngest kid, she loves horror movies.
When she was a little kid or now?
Her whole life.
Really?
And my older kids, not so much. My eldest daughter, not so much. Do you like horror movies?
Do I?
No, I like sappy rom-coms.
Well, can I say, I just realized one of my favorite films of all time.
Yep.
So, rom-com, Silence of the Lambs.
Silence of the Lambs.
So, does that count as a horror movie?
Several people have mentioned that. Yeah.
One of the greatest movies ever. Yes, one of the greatest.
It was very good. Apparently, there was a follow-up to Silence of the Lambs here called Hannibal.
Yeah,
and that is the 10th biggest grossing.
Is it really true?
Film. Yeah, that came out in 2001, and Julianne Moore was in it in the role of Starling this time, replacing Jodie Foster, who played Clarice in the original one.
You know, Zoe, our coworker, is asking us a question. We're at the library for Halloween this year. Can we all dress up? And I can answer that clearly. The answer is no. We cannot all dress up. You can dress up, but we all cannot dress up.
Several people have mentioned Rosemary's Baby, which was a Mia Farrow. That's an old movie, but that was a really good one. And a lot of people love The Shining and The Haunting. I'm getting tons of people.
Well,
saying
getting back to the first film, I think Get Out's one of the best films I've seen in the last 10 years. It is really,
it's really good. If you haven't seen it, it's absolutely worth watching.
Terrifying.
But it's not gross.
No.
It's just really scary. And Hereditary with Toni Collette. That's horrifying. That's on the list too. I got to find that somewhere.
Well, when you're looking, how about Janice in Amesbury? You want to join us?
Janice in Amesbury. Thank you for calling.
Hi, Janice.
Hi.
Hi.
My but my most memorable creepy movie, and this is really dating me, was Whatever Happened to Baby Jane.
Is that Betty Davis and what you call it?
Yes.
Yeah.
Joan Crawford and Betty Davis.
Where she serves her with a rat for dinner.
Yeah. That's a classic.
No, it was her pet bird.
Oh, a pet bird.
Same thing.
Oh, pet bird. I thought it was a rat.
So,
Janice, that's a good one. Thank you very much.
How about the film? What's the name of the film where the woman who's having an affair with Michael Douglas? Fatal Attraction.
Oh,
puts
that was a horror movie for 50% of the men in America because Michael Douglas is having an affair, and all of a sudden the woman he's having a kind of a one-night stand with turns wacky.
She's a little wacky.
And starts doing very scary things. There are a million things
What
written
head
about
did she
that.
boil?
She put a rabbit, the family
Oh,
of
the
a
rabbit,
yeah. And oh my God, if you haven't seen that, and you know what?
Does that count as one of these?
If you're
It does, right?
fooling around, see that movie, it might straighten you right out.
Or
Jim,
maybe
that's what I
before
would
you
say.
fool around, you
Before
should
you
see
fool
the
around,
movie.
see that movie and see what could happen.
I think it's a good idea.
If things go awry, if you pick the wrong woman to carry on with, you could be in big trouble.
She's got a rabbit, I would say, pick again. Maureen and Needham, you're next on Boston Public Radio. What's up, Maureen?
Hi.
Hi.
I was just talking to your screener there.
Yeah, you were.
And I'm talking about The Exorcist. It wasn't so much the movie that scared me. I had read the book about a year before the movie came out, and that scared me silly. And so I did end up seeing the movie with two friends, but I saw it about maybe 5 months after it came out, and it was an afternoon matinee. And we were scared going in. However, there were some young guys sitting down the front, and they were just making all kinds of silly comments when things were on the screen. So we kind of were laughing at that point. So there was some comic relief during some otherwise scary scenes, but it was really the book that scared me.
I'm looking up. William Peter Blatty is the author, right? Is he
right.
Or is he well, he wrote the screenplay. Did he write the book too?
He wrote
did.
the book.
Thank you, John. And thank you,
Yeah,
Maureen.
and my sister had given me the book. She had read it, and she said, well, it's kind of scary, and it's like, that's what scared me. You know,
yeah, the books are always
We got
scarier.
Maureen. Thank you very
you
much.
for
By the way,
call.
do you know there's like a remake, The Exorcist Believer 2023?
No, I missed it.
I don't think so.
Misery with Cassie Bates and James Caan.
That is
A lot of people
terrifying. Well, she
mentioned that.
kidnaps him,
She
right?
kidnaps him and she keeps him tied up
I saw
to his
that one
bed.
too. Turns out we've seen almost all
Rob
of these.
Zombie's House of 1,000 Corpses. Have you heard of that one?
That sounds really good too.
I haven't heard of that one. That's from Adam from
Show's
New Hampshire.
over, Marjorie.
Oh, the show's over?
Yeah.
Oh, okay, we're out of time.
Happy
Sorry
Halloween,
about that.
though.
Okay, happy Halloween.
Marjorie's
well,
going to
we have a
dress
few
up for the
days.
Halloween show at the library.
Yeah, somebody said she'd dress like Kurt Cobain in your grunge outfits day after day
Thank
after
you.
day.
I really appreciate
Jim.
that.
Okay, what is this from? This is from the Halloween theme. Okay, thank you for listening to another edition of Boston Public
That's
Radio.
pretty
thank you
scary,
for being down at
actually.
the Boston Public Library.
Thank
It was
you all
wonderful
for
to hear
coming.
Lavender D'Arcangelo. She was fantastic.
She is spectacular.
Keep up with us 24/7 by way of our podcast. Monday, we're going to be joined by Michael Curry and Jennifer Nassour for political panel. GBH news analyst Charlie Sennett joins us to keep us apprised of the latest out of Israel and Gaza. Our food man, Corby Cummer, the Reverends Irene Monroe and Emmett Price, and Vulture podcast critic Nick
Quah, great.
will also be with us. I want to thank our crew, Zoe Matthews, Aidan Conley, Nicole Garcia, Hannah Loss, additional support from Ethan Kotler, and thanks to our team at the library as well. I don't know who was here today. I think Colin Cockrell's here.
Colin's here, yeah.
Maddie's here, I think. I'm not sure who else is here. Anyway, sorry about that. Our engineer is John the Claw Parker, and our executive producer is Jamie Bologna.
Let me just say again, lavenderdarkangelo.com, or just Google her. You can follow her, contribute to her GoFundMe page for her album Mosaic, whatever you want, but keep checking her out. In any case, see you on Monday. Have a wonderful weekend.
Monday. I'm Marjorie Egan.
I'm Jim Browdy.
Thanks again for tuning in, and hope you can tune in again Monday. And Jim just said have a great weekend.
Thank you all.